But again, this is a
Yeah.
really good song. Like, if you honestly think this is the worst Beach Boys song, you haven't listened to much, like you said, Steve, because I can think of like five off the top of my head that are way worse than this. Some of which are from like their 60s prime, Like I think Pom Pom Playgirl is worse than this, you know?
Give me your huddled masses, your poor,
Oh,
your
that piece of
Oh my,
shit.
we'll get to that later, Jake. Don't worry.
Hey everyone, my name is Jake, and welcome to this 52nd episode of Good Timin. As always on this podcast, we're going to be talking about one of our favorite bands, the Beach Boys. And on today's episode, we're going to be covering one of the most legendary albums of the entire 80s, Still Cruisin'. So, as usual with our album discussion episodes, we're first going to go over a bit of the history behind the record and talk about where the Beach Boys were at the time. And then we will discuss each of the tracks one by one and share our own thoughts and opinions on them. And then to close out the episode, we're going to go over a bunch of extra tracks that the band recorded in the 80s and 90s for movies or released just as standalone singles. So, joining me for tonight's show, I have my good friends Riley, Matt, and Nate, as well as our returning guest, Steve. Steve has his own YouTube channel called The Beach Boys Basement, where he discusses all things Beach Boys, as well as 20th century music, movies, and pop culture. So, I would recommend you to check out Steve's channel. I think many of you listening would really enjoy his content. So, I'm really excited to have all of you guys here tonight, and I cannot wait to discuss all of these 80s tracks with you guys. So, before we get into some of the history and background surrounding Still Cruisin', do you guys have any general thoughts or feelings about the record that you wanted to share?
I think Steve should go first.
All right, Steve.
Well, as I started to mention, when you guys, gave me the list of tracks and said we were going to talk about Still Cruisin', I will say it gave me an opportunity to listen to some Beach Boys records that don't get a lot of play with me. So, yeah, I was revisiting this for the first time in a really long time.
My general thoughts would be that it's not the groundbreaking experimentation of Smile. It's not the feisty rock of Carl and the Passions or Holland, but to me, it's really, really solid pop. And in my opinion, the most infectious, commercial, and energetic pairing of songs that the band released in the 80s.
I was kind of shocked that this one existed when I first found it. Well, when I was getting into the band, I mean, of course, the first thing you're gonna do, at least to my age, my young, strapping 21-year-old self. When I found it, I would think I was 18 still. And of course, I was surfing through like Wyatt Apple Music at the time. I was surfing through that, and I kind of thought that the Beach Boys story ended in 1985. Well, I guess 2012 too. But then I found out about the two albums that are not on streaming, and then you kind of figure out pretty quickly why. Um, but I think with this particular one, I think I actually kind of liked it on first listen. I just, like Nate said, it's nothing crazy. Let me tell you that. Nothing groundbreaking. But when you think of 80s Beach Boys, this is exactly what would probably come to mind. When it comes to 1985's self-titled, I mean, I really like that one on first listen. But this one was kind of more of what I was expecting. But it is still very catchy in probably the best and worst way possible. A very, very catchy record. Well, very catchy EP with tacked on tracks.
So my personal opinion of this, I think it's a lot of fun. I think that there's a lot of really catchy pop songs on it. I think that especially in parts, it's much better than it has any right being. I'm a big fan of 80s pop music, so I really quite like this record a lot. And I do enjoy actually most of the tracks on here. My only gripes with it are there's a few that I don't really care for. There's one in particular that I really think is not great at all. And then I do I'm with Riley a bit that I kind of wish it was a full LP of 80s material rather than just like the three classics tacked on. Not that they aren't great songs. I mean, of course, I Get Around, Would It Be Nice, and California Girls are three of the best probably American pop songs ever made, but it just is not really fitting with the rest of the record. But I still enjoy listening to it from time to time. I don't put it on all the time, partially because it's not on streaming. I do have the CD and of course I have the record, but when I do put it on, I usually find myself enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that you guys said. This is an album that, like, I understand, like, some people kind of viewing it like it's like a cash grab that they released just to, like, make money off of Kokomo. Like, oh, we had a big hit with Kokomo, so let's put together this album that has Kokomo on it and a bunch of these other songs that we released recently. But For me, it is a really fun record. I think there's a lot of really catchy pop songs on here. Like you guys have said, it's nothing groundbreaking by any means. I don't think a lot of these songs are essential by any means either. But if you just like fun 80s pop, I think that you might get some enjoyment out of this record. It's another one of those albums too where like you can't compare it to some of those earlier records. You can't compare it to Sunflower. You can't compare it to Surf Soft. Can't compare it to Pet Sounds, obviously. But for what it is, which is just the band making fun 80s pop music, I think it's a lot of fun, and I do enjoy the record. So, like Matt said, there's a couple tracks on here that I do not care for really at all, but the ones that I do like, I really like. And I know this album's not on streaming, but I actually have quite a few of the songs from here downloaded onto my Spotify. I do listen to them ago. So I enjoyed this record quite a bit.
Let me tell you, man, maybe the best album cover in their discography. That album cover is killer.
Well, I'm a big Corvette guy, so I like it a lot.
It's cool. It's a cool album cover. I also wanted to mention too that I love how the descriptors for this album on Wikipedia are rock, new wave, and reggae fusion.
Hmm.
Like, look at the descriptors, you think like, oh wow, new wave and reggae fusion. Like, this is gonna be kind of out there. And then you listen to it, it's like, no.
No.
Kind of 80s just pop music, but it's still a fun time. So,
Well, now I'm curious. What does Rate Your Music classify this as? I'm actually really curious.
garbage.
Pop rock, tropical rock, adult contemporary, and surf rock.
Tropical rock. Gotta
I
love it.
think this is the perfect bridge, for better or for worse, between 85 and Summer in Paradise, because you have
Yeah.
kind of the production, I think, on this record is actually pretty fantastic.
Mhm.
It's missing a lot of the synths that Steve Levine used, but I think there's some of that, like, enough still there to make it very listenable. And I think the songwriting in some spots is actually like pretty serious enough. And I'll say exactly which songs I mean. It really is a great bridge between those two records.
Mhm.
Quality wise, not really looked at.
All right, so now to get into some of the history behind Still Cruisin', I'm going to hand things over to Riley. So, Riley, do you want to talk about how the record came together and also how like the track list was assembled?
Yeah. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of backtracking to about, I would say, like 1984. The Beach Boys started to be regulars in terms of making music for movies. Of course, you can look at Chasing the Sky, and you also start to see a lot of more of that nostalgia act really starting to creep up. While Beach Boys 85 is very much not a nostalgia trip, some of the stuff they were releasing on the side before and after really was. You kind of see that a little bit with California Dreamin', which was released in 1986, which was they got the Mamas and the Papas and I think Roger McGuinn of the Birds to like be in the music video as well as the production process, and that was a big 60s song that they redid. You can still kind of look at that as like an artistic, I guess, endeavor. But just strictly looking at them, looking back at the 60s and re-releasing one of those tracks is kind of them embracing the nostalgia act a bit. Brian releases his self-titled record in 1988. He's starting to write a little bit more music. However, he will kind of dip in terms of how much he's really contributing to the band. However, he did have, at the very least, one great track for this album. And we will get to that one, Jake. The Beach Boys also kind of got back with Capitol. Capitol was consistently releasing compilations all like since like the 60s, going the 70s and 80s, even though the Beach Boys were not with them in terms of releasing new music. They were constantly releasing compilations. I mean, you can look at Endless Summer, but like you also have the Capitol Years box set, Made in the USA. So they're releasing a lot of stuff with Capitol. And then the big one, the real kicker, is the release of Kokomo for the movie Cocktail. They had worked with Terry Melcher here and there in the 80s. They kind of brought him back into the fold after he took a pretty big hiatus in the early 80s. He was good friends with Bruce, and Bruce was obviously with the band. They brought him in, and he kind of helped them make music for movies. And then what they really grabbed him was after Get You Back was with California Dreamin' to have him produce it. And I remember, I think in the Endless Summer Quarterly I read, I think they like really, I think Al Jardine specifically actually begged him to do it because it was either Terry, we're gonna do this or we're not gonna do it at all. And that's really rides on if he did it, and he did. California Dreamin' was moderately successful, and so they got him back for Kokomo. They grabbed an old song that oh my God, what's his name? Oh, the dude from Mamas and the Papas,
John
John
Phillips.
Phillips.
John Phillips. They grabbed John Phillips, like an old demo he did. I think it was called Fairy Tale Girl or something
Yep.
from
Yep.
I'm sure one of you get, yeah, Fairy Tale Girl. And but then they kind of rewrote a little bit of it with Scott McKenzie, Terry Melcher, Bruce Johnson, and Mike Love to, or not Bruce Johnson, I don't think he's on this one. To
Uncredited, but in the ESQ magazine about it, Bruce says that he was essentially a co-writer and co-producer, but just didn't feel the need to assert his
yeah, I mean
credit.
that's yeah. Um, and they rewrote it for more of a commercial release to be used in the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise, of course. And so the main crux of the song was John Phillips and a little bit of Scott McKenzie. But then you have Mike coming up with the Aruba, Jamaica, Ooh, I Want to Take You Hook. And then you have Terry Melcher doing I'm personally my favorite part of the song, Ooh, I Want to Take You Down to Kokomo. And they released their first number one hit in, I think, what was it, 22 years? I think it still holds the records for the greatest length in between number one hits. Part
No,
of partly
no,
no,
no. It does for a band. The record for I think any artist I want to say is Cher's "Believe."
regardless, and it was insanely successful, at least to the public, to the not the diehards, but to the public, because of the movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise, and it kind of brought them back into like a big spotlight. They started doing appearances on TV shows, mostly because of John Stamos. I know they did Full House, but they also did that other one that John Stamos was in, and I kind of
You
forgot.
again.
Thank you, Nate. Um, And so they were really in the public spotlight. The diehards were really thriving off of it because there's a very different sound that they're used to. This is a much more commercial, almost Jimmy Buffett, yacht rock kind of popularity sound that they had. But riding off the success of that, their consistent movie soundtrack releases, they put together this album, in which Mike Love intended to be I hate to use this term, a concept album using songs that were strictly in movies. However, in execution, not really. Um, Al Jardine wrote a song that he wanted to release. Brian Wilson needed to get his track, and thank God he did. And at the very end, they only really released, I think, only a couple of new songs. And it was kind of cobbled together from like bits and pieces. They tacked on three already released tracks from like 20 years prior, big hits. I Get Around, California Girls, and Wouldn't It Be Nice. But that being said, Terry Melcher, I think, did a great job producing it. You have a lot of like guitar on this record,
Mm.
which was kind of surprising because the last one was a lot of synths. And for better or for worse, you kind of have one of the most cheesy 80s releases of all times. But I'm still a fan, so that's still
Yeah.
cruising.
Yeah, Riley, that Brian track wasn't in a movie, but it damn sure should have been in a movie.
It should have been. Well, he had another one that was in a movie. That was a similar one. Oh, I was gonna say, a couple of other things that I didn't mention from the last 85. They did a crossover episode with the Four Seasons. And when I say crossover episodes, I mean a song. And then after this, they did Crocodile Rock. And what was the other one? Crap, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Yeah.
A lot of 80s crap, like gold crap, like that gold shit from American Dad that you see, like that.
Yeah. I just wanted to add that so Riley was talking about how like this album it was intending to be like kind of a concept album and that like it was mostly going to be all movie soundtrack songs, but then in the end it didn't really end up being that. Kind of the weird thing with that though is like it easily could have been like it could have all been movie soundtrack songs. Like they definitely had enough tracks by that point. There's some extra tracks we're going to be talking about that were released in like '86 that came out before this album was released that could have been included and they just weren't. I don't know if some of that was like a copyright thing. I'm not really sure, but I just feel like this is an album that it really could have been kind of Mike's vision for it, where it's like all movie soundtrack stuff, which would be kind of neat. But in the end, I mean, it still mostly is. Most of the tracks on here were on movies, it's just a few that weren't. But yeah, I think it is kind of interesting. There is a little backstory behind this because I mean, if you didn't know that, you look at the track list, you kind of just be like, oh, it's just like '80s stuff. But then you realize, oh, there's actually a little bit of a story behind the track list. So
And the thought process behind the inclusion of the 60s tracks actually was because those specific songs were in movies.
yep, yep.
So even though the inclusion of them is jarring, it actually stays in line with the movie concept.
Right. And I also understand too why they're there. Like I understand they're trying to sell this thing. At the time it's not like this is trying to be some groundbreaking record like we've said. It's got Kokomo on it. It's got Wipeout, which was a big hit overseas, I know. So like I understand they're just trying to sell this thing, but obviously as like a fan, you wish that they'd have some more new material on here, especially because you know they did have new material they could have put on it for better or for worse. So,
Yeah.
Steve, before we move on, anything else you wanted to add about the album or the album's
Yeah,
history?
well, I mean, you kind of touched on it. When this thing came out, I was hoping for a Beach Boys album.
Hmm.
And it looked to me, and I took it very much, it had been a year since Kokomo had come out. And it looked to me like my impression, and you kind of touched on it, was they gave him a year to come up with an album to go with Kokomo. And they got a few tracks together. They pulled in a track from Brian so they could say he was still part of it.
Hmm.
And then they filled it up with these, hit tracks, which any fan is going to have those tracks anyway. So there was no benefit to a fan to have that. And really going back, I mean, Big Chill came out in '83, so that was getting a little long in the tooth included. Um,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be nice? Uh, so, I mean, yeah, okay, maybe it was, okay, we want to have all, make it all movie tracks. But my feeling really was that they were trying to get an album together to have Kokomo on a Beach Boys album, and they couldn't quite get there. So they put three additional greatest hits on it.
Yeah, I can totally get that, especially at the time too. Like maybe not thinking about all these extra tracks they could have put on here. Just kind of viewing it like, oh, they just don't have enough material, so they had to just cobble.
It certainly looked
Oh, they
that
have
way.
plenty, but
Especially without having the benefit of the internet to
Yeah.
research these types of things. You would just have to go off of that gut impression, like Steve was describing.
All right. Do we want to get into the track by track run through of Still Cruising?
Let's go.
All
of course.
right. Come on, let's cruise. So, the first track on the record is the title track, Still Cruisin'. So this is a Mike and Terry Melcher composition, and this was also the first new single from the album. It was released in July of 1989, so about a month before the Still Cruisin' album came out, and about a year after Kokomo. The song also made an appearance in the film Lethal Weapon 2, which actually features another song that I like quite a bit, the song Cheer Down by George Harrison. In terms of Still Cruisin', though, I've always really enjoyed this one. Musically, I don't think it's anything too crazy, and it also has some really cheesy lyrics, courtesy of Mike, I'm sure. But I just find the song to be really catchy and fun. I also feel that the production elevates this one quite a bit. I especially love the part in the middle of the song where the vocals drop out and all the guitars come in. I think that sounds pretty neat. And then I also wanted to mention that I really love Carl's vocal section on this. The "When we go cruising, yeah." I think that he sounds really great on that, and I really doubt that I would enjoy the song as much if he wasn't on here. So I wouldn't consider this to be an essential Beach Boys song by any means. And if you don't like Kokomo, I imagine that you probably hate this one even more. But I do personally enjoy it, and I think that it's a good representation of kind of the band's late '80s sound, for better or for worse. So I dig this one.
I felt like it was sort of meant to be Kokomo Mark II.
Mm-hmm.
The come on or come let's cruise that starts it is a little bit like Bermuda, Bahama. Uh, Listening to it again though, and listening to this whole thing again, the vocals are so good,
Mm-hmm.
and so that alone kind of makes kind of was a revelation to me. I'd forgotten how good the vocals are on this thing. The tinny sort of '80s sound. Yeah, okay. I mean, it's kind of fun in a retro way. The nice vocal arrangement, great vocals, and I enjoyed it. It's to me it's the standout on the record.
I think it's a really great tune. I actually think it's an essential Beach Boys track, especially if you're putting your lens on the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly an essential 80s Beach Boys song. It's got that great Mike Love kind of swagger to it. And like Steve alluded to, it's got that Kokomo um, feel to it, which is at least in Mike's involvement, inspired by Smokey Joe's Cafe and that whole kind of R&B thing. So it's Mike bringing in a lot of his R&B influence and sort of mixing that with Terry Melcher's jangle pop kind of vibe that he brings to the table. So I think it's a really killer single, really catchy. I like the guitars play really cool riffs throughout the song, great guitar solo. And I just love the way that each then band member's voice was utilized. You got the lead switching from Mike to Bruce to Carl to Al, and it's just really effective. And I love when they do that. So for me, it's a home run of a song. I really, really love it.
Essential, no. But really, really fun, yeah. I don't know if swagger is the right word, but it's definitely got a lot of charm to it. I definitely love that everybody kind of gets their own vocal moment. Par Brian, I know he's not really on a lot of these tracks. And you kind of see that with definitely the next song too, which I really appreciate. But man, the guitars on this one are actually really cool. I love the way they're produced. I think Terry did a really great job producing this record. It definitely sounds like 80s cheese, but like in the best way possible. And I think for a song about them still cruising after all of these years, it still sounds very fresh and still very new, which is something you can't say the same of for some of the material that came after. Um, so I do really like that. But yeah, I love Carl's, yeah, we're still cruising, yeah. And then I love Mike's little breakdown too. Like I feel like that goes against everything I don't like about Mike. But that little
It's
breakdown he
almost
does.
like rapping.
Are you talking about like the baby put your top down, down?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like every part of me wants to hate that, but I absolutely love that part in the song. So
Yeah.
big fan of this one. I don't think it's essential, but I think it's a very fun song. And I'm glad that they played it a couple of times in the 2012 show. I kind of wish they played it a little bit more, but
Lots of fun, very well produced, very catchy. I love the vocal show offs in the chorus. Like you kind of can hear everybody. And I really like the backing vocals, like the "Baby, come on." Carl sings the hell out of his part, and I think Mike actually delivers a pretty good vocal too. Guitars are great. Very fun and catchy song. I think it's a great way to start off the record. I really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
definitely a great opener. I can agree with that.
Yeah. Steve, I think you kind of mentioned kind of like the tinny sound that like some of the 80s production has. The only part of this one that kind of bothers me a little bit production wise is just the drums. They definitely sound pretty dated, but besides the drums, I think everything else on here sounds pretty great. I think the guitars sound great, like Nate talked about, and just a really pretty well produced track. I also wanted to shout out a couple of Mike lyrics from this one. The opening line, "Hey girl, let's go for a spin, hop in my hot rod and do it again." Immediately get the Beach Boy song reference in there. Gotta love it. And then I also always laugh when I listen to this one on streaming. I always laugh at the line, "We'll take a trip on up to the lake, down by the river, where we can make out." There's just something about that just cracks me up. It's just like, here's like middle-aged Mike Love, like talking freaking 20, 30 years old. Like, it's just funny to me. And then I also saw some review that somebody left of this song that said, "I doubt many people would want to think about a greenhouse effect manifesting on Mr. Love." So, all right. So the next track on the record is "Somewhere Near Japan." So this is a John Phillips, Mike Love, Terry Melcher, and Bruce Johnston composition. So this song started out as a John Phillips track called "Fairy Tale Girl," which was actually about his daughter Mackenzie's substance abuse problem. Although you probably wouldn't really know that if you were just looking at the lyrics. You kind of need the backstory to kind of like get that. John actually recorded a version of this in the 80s that has a very different sound than what the Beach Boys version sounds like. It's much more of a stripped back arrangement, and it also features harpsichord pretty prominently. So this week I re-listened to both recordings, and I can say two things. One, the Beach Boys version of this absolutely blows the original out of the water. And two, "Somewhere Near Japan" has finally clicked with me. I know that I've said for a long time on this podcast that this was a song that I was never really quite as enthusiastic about as a lot of fans seem to be. But re-listening to it multiple times this week, it finally just totally clicked with me. I've mentioned before that I like the production on this song, but hearing it again, I honestly had kind of forgotten how great it is. I really love the slick, jangly guitar sound throughout this song. It is very 80s sounding, but I think in a good way. And I think that it really adds a lot to the track. I also really like how each of the guys get their own little vocal part on this song. I think that they all sound great. I'd say that Mike's vocals on this are probably some of his best vocals of the 80s because sometimes, he sounds a little bit nasally, but on this one, I think he sounds perfect. And I also think that Carl and Al both sound fantastic too. So I'm really glad that this song finally clicked with me because I felt like it had everything that I would like and appreciate in a song, but I just didn't really get it. So But now I can say that I do, and I have a feeling that I'm going to be coming back to this one a lot in the coming weeks and months. So I really love it now, and I think that there is a case to be made that this is the last truly great Beach Boys song. Although there are a few that came after this that I do rate pretty highly too. So I think it's a really great song, and I see why people consider it the highlight of the album. I think it's great.
Yeah,
Steve.
I was kind of the same way on it. I know people love it, and it kind of I didn't find it all that memorable. One thing I really did appreciate about it was the lyric was not about summer, surfing, cars, America, or their history. I don't think it's the most relatable lyric, but it was just really nice to hear them go off of their usual safe fallback topics. And
Mhm.
again, the lyrics, or I'm sorry, the vocals are phenomenal, especially Carl. And as you mentioned, I think Mike is singing better here. He's past that nasal thing that he had going in the early '80s. I liked it much better on a recent re-listen for this. And I'm really glad that you guys sent me back to it because I did really enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's an excellent song. It clicked with me right away. When you listen to this song, you really have the impression of the importance of the Beach Boys' respective vocal timbres and how all their voices were key to that special sound. And when you get to future albums like Somewhere in Paradise and That's Why God Made the Radio, there were a lot of what I'd call like surrogate Beach Boys filling in the gaps and doing a lot of the singing. But on this song, you just have all those great Beach Boy harmonies and vocals. And I really agree with what Steve said. It's refreshing to have a song that's removed from the usual themes. Which don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of the usual themes, but it is nonetheless refreshing to have something that's like a little bit more adult and a little bit more serious. So yeah, I think I really like the production all around. I think even the drums for being a lot of people knock 80s drums, but I think they have a really cool, punchy, crisp sound. And I like the Asian instruments that are used on the song. I don't know specifically what instruments they are, but the stringed instruments sound really beautiful. So yeah, it's a really creative song, and I agree that John Phillips' demo is pretty and cool, but what Mike and Bruce did to shape the song and rewrite it and add to it really elevated it into a classic.
As much as I like Beach Boys 85 and pretty much every song on that record, I think that this is quite easily the best song they released in the 80s. This could maybe make like a top 25 Beach Boys song list for me. And I think Jake is right. This is maybe like the last truly great Beach Boys song. Like I think it's yeah, maybe it's no like Pet Sounds, but I think like in terms of what we got and when we got it, it's incredible. Um, I love the guitars on it. I love the chorus on the guitars. I think Terry Melcher did an incredible job producing this one. And yeah, I was gonna say it totally destroys John Phillips' demo. Like if you listen to that one, it's like this almost like waltzy, kind of like Baroque song, and then you listen to this, and it absolutely destroys it. Um, and I want to say Al, his one like vocal part on the song might be my favorite Al vocal in the entire catalog. He absolutely kills that part. It's the perfect amount of like raspiness in his voice. It just absolutely hits on that part of the song, and it sucks because once he figured out what he was actually singing about, he never wanted to sing it again. So unfortunately, we'll never hear like a live version of this song. But holy shit, this is just an incredible song. And like I kind of wish we got more songs like these where they kind of, even though their sound is very pop and contemporary, they still have a lot of seriousness left in them, but I don't think we ever got a song like this one again. So absolutely incredible. One of my favorite Beach Boys songs, period. Really wish we got more of it.
By far my favorite song on the record. I think that this is an amazing song. Um, I like the little production touches like at the beginning where you kind of have like the gong sound and like how it like the little that little instrument kind of playing throughout that kind of like gives it like that Asian feel, I guess for lack of a better term. I like how you have like everybody kind of gets their part to show off in the vocals again. And I agree with you, Riley. I think Al's section is incredible. That's by far my favorite part of the song, especially the part where he's like, "I broke her fall and I always will." The way he sings that line, I think it's just incredible. I think it's just an amazing song. Love the guitar sound, just love everything about it. And yeah, I think we could definitely say this is probably like the best song they did in the 80s. At least for me, it's up there.
Yeah, I guess another compliment that I could give this song in terms of its sound is that like there's only a select, I would say a select like handful of songs that the band put out in the 80s that I'd feel comfortable like playing in front of anybody pretty much. Like if I was driving in the car, if it came on, I wouldn't be like, "Oh, I better skip this one." This is one of those ones now like I'd be totally comfortable playing this for just about anybody because I think that there's a lot to enjoy with it. And I think the production on this, like you guys said, like it sounds great. For the time, when it came out, it just sounds fresh and modern, and I think that's really the highlight of the song for me. I think musically it's great, but the production is just so good. Like the sound of the guitars and everything. I think Terry Melcher did a great job producing this. So
If I could add one more thought before we move on, something occurred to me as we were talking about this song and how it developed from a demo to the final version. I think with Mike Love, if you put him in front of a piano and left him there by himself, he may not come up with something Mozart level, to say the least. But I think what makes Mike a brilliant songwriter in his own right is hearing a demo or an idea or a fragment that is okay, good, solid, or even maybe just has an idea there and turning it into something like fleshed out and with a concept. And I think that's like one of his greatest skills. And this song really displays that perfectly because you have a before and after of what a song looked like before he had his hands on it. And before it's pretty and it's nice, but after Mike did his thing, it sounds like a classic and a hit.
yeah. And you get the same thing with Kokomo too. Listening to those back to back, it's like you hear a song that sounds nice, but it's not a hit. And then you listen to Mike's addition to it, and it's like, damn, like this sounds like a hit, and it was. So all right, the next track on the record is Island Girl. So like Somewhere Near Japan, this is one of the few songs from the album that was not pulled from a movie soundtrack. It's an Al Jardine composition, and it features vocals from Al, Carl, and Mike. So of all of the new songs on the album, this is one of the ones that I've never been the biggest fan of. I remember the first time that I heard it, I thought that it just sounded like a rewrite of The Tide Is High, specifically the Blondie version.
Yeah.
You guys know I'm not really the biggest reggae fan, so I generally struggle with songs that kind of lean into this sound, like this one. That said, I will admit that it has grown on me a little bit after re-listening. I do like the bridge sections quite a bit. The everybody's got an island fantasy, and then the she's a real beauty from the Caribbean. I do like those parts, and I also do like Carl and Al's lead vocals as well. But I still find the chorus to be a little bit annoying and repetitive. I also can't really shake the feeling that this is just a weaker rewrite of something else. Whether it's The Tide Is High by Blondie or some other reggae sounding song, this just kind of sounds like I've heard it somewhere before, which bothers me a little bit. But yeah, overall, I don't hate Island Girl, and I think that it's fine for what it is. But I can't really see myself ever listening to this one by itself outside of the album. So it grew on me a bit re-listening, but I'm still far from the biggest fan of this track.
Yeah, I just felt like, well, let's do a reggae one was the thought there. And I think maybe also because Kokomo had been about the Caribbean instead of the Pacific. Okay, well, that's an area we kind of haven't explored, so let's do that. But it's pleasant. The vocals, once again, the vocals are fantastic, particularly Carl. Can't fault the vocals at all on it. But the tracks. It sounds kind of like something you'd hear in a tropical themed restaurant at Disney World or something to me. It just doesn't.
We're,
It's
we're,
fine. It's pleasant, but yeah.
we're getting into Jimmy Buffett territory a little bit here.
Yes,
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, but at least they didn't sing it with a goofy Jamaican accent the way
Yeah.
Jagger used to do on Rolling Stones records. So I'll give him that.
Or like, what's that Led Zeppelin song, Dear Maker or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Jamaica.
Yeah, Jamaica, that's it, yeah.
Oh, 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 oh.
Why do you guys hate that one? That's like one of my favorite songs
I
off
I I,
of.
I think that song is fine. I don't hate it.
It gets on my nerves.
Um, so yeah, I'm in total agreement with Jake that for the longest time of hearing this song, I I thought, well, without a doubt, either this rips off Tide is High or Tide is High ripped off this. I wasn't sure which one came first until I looked it up, but They sound very, very, very similar. But that's really not a huge shocker. When you look at songs written by Al, you sort of have to use that written by uh liberally,
He,
and not literally. Uh, because in a very folk informed tradition, like he is kind of cherry picks ideas and rewrites old songs. And so, but disregarding that, because, who really cares at the end of the day? Uh, the song is very pleasant and fun, and it didn't move me very much at first, but upon re-listening to it and re-listening to it, because this album is fun to play. I think I play it a lot because it's short and it's light and it's breezy. And so after hearing it enough, the song really grew on me. And what I will also say is it's two things stand out to me. It's the first time you hear Brian's voice on the album, which is great. Brian makes his little vocal cameos. And also, it's the debut vocally on a Beach Boys album of Matt Jardine, who
mm.
would go on to sing on a large amount of their following releases. And this is the first time you have Matt singing on a Beach Boys record. So for that reason, I like it.
Yeah, I like this one. I am a fan of the Tie to Side by Blondie. That came out, I think, in 1980. So
Yes.
about a
Yeah,
solid like
yeah,
eight,
quite a
9 years
while.
before. But that was a cover of a song by the Paragons.
Hmm.
Um, so I've never really cared about the similarities in sound. It was kind of a recent development though. Jake always mentioned it here and there, but then recently, like, it really stuck with me, so I could really hear it now. But I still think it's a lot of fun. Um, I really do like Carl's part. I think it's just a really fun song. Like, this isn't like trying too hard to be a nostalgia act. This isn't trying too hard to be anything like crazy. It's just a fun song. What you kind of, again, what you'd expect from like late 80s Beach Boys. I think it's produced really well. I just think it's a lot of fun. And it's one that I is on my Beach Boys playlist, and I do return to it. And I think so far this album has three pretty killer tracks, all things considered. It just kind of sucks that it's not a complete album because clearly they had some stuff left in the tank. Pun absolutely intended.
So for me, first of all, I've never really made the connection to the Tide is High, which I do like that song a lot. So I actually do like quite a bit of like ska reggae stuff. Like I love the song Santeria by Sublime. I like a lot of Bob Marley stuff. Probably a lot more than Jake does. Um, Looking at this song, I think it's all right. It's kind of like I don't know, like it feels a little lazy to me. I don't know if that's kind of how
It does.
that's
Does.
kind of how Al is with the writing. It's like a lot of like kind of like derivative and rip off. Sorry, I still love you, Al. I don't know. I think it's like okay. I think it's a pleasant like listen in the context of the record. I probably wouldn't choose to put it on outside the context of the record. I do like some of the vocals though. Like I kind of like the like she kind of sassy. I really like that line. Then I do think Al sings this part really good. Like she's fine, so fine. Oh my, she's that part.
Yeah.
Bridge does good on the bridge, but like as a whole. I don't care for it that much. I think it's just all right. And it's kind of a shame because I do actually like that kind of music quite a bit, but this just has never done as much for me as some of the others.
All right. So the fourth track on Still Cruisin',
Yep. Yep.
song
Hmm.
called "In My Car," written
Hmm.
by Brian Wilson, and like many of the songs on Brian Wilson 88, this one was originally credited to Brian and Eugene Landy, but since their credits were all removed from that album, I think that it's safe to say that this should only be credited to Brian as well. So this is a song that I remember used to not do anything for me at all, and then one day I re-listened to it shortly after we started this podcast, and it just totally clicked. I think that this is an absolute banger of a song and definitely a highlight of the album for me. I love pretty much everything about it. You've got that really cool slow opening with the cool synth sound. Really like that a lot. You got the super catchy verses and chorus sung by Brian, Carl, and Al. The slick 80s production, and then the really rocking guitar that plays throughout the song too. Again, the lyrics are pretty cheesy on this one, but I actually think that they suit the song and the album well. So I can't imagine this song being about anything other than Brian being in his car with some girl. So I think the song absolutely slaps, and I think that it's a great example of Brian taking the concepts or idea from another song. In this case, "Let's Go to Heaven in My Car," and
Uh-huh.
improving on it. So I love this song, and I think it's one of the tracks on the album that I come back to the most. So a lot of fun, and I just wanted to mention too, I love the lyric "I'm Captain of My Destiny." I don't know why, but I just think that's a great lyric. So
Well, it hasn't clicked for me yet. I,
It will after you finish this episode.
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, to me, it sounds kind of poorly mixed and a little unfinished. I'm not sure if they like pushed the drum up to try to make it rock harder. You know, they wanted it to rock harder than it did. Um, I don't get it. I mean, I'll leave it at that. I mean, you guys, I don't want to, rain on your parade, and I don't feel that's, but I feel like it was just brought in because they needed to have Brian there somewhere, and that's what he had. Uh,
Steve, can I ask what your opinion is on Let's Go to Heaven in My Car?
it's goofy, and I was very disappointed.
Okay.
But it also was kind of what I expected at the time. And then
Yeah.
the Brian Wilson album, that was like, wow. So,
You'll like both of them after this.
yeah, okay.
We'll guarantee it. And then you're going to
Yeah,
mention it
well,
in the next.
I want to hear what you think of it because it's not speaking to me, and obviously it is to at least some of you guys.
You do have to admire the fact that they hadn't really made any car songs since I don't know, 1964 or 5. And then here you got this album in 1989 with several songs back on the car theme. So it's fun. And to me, I always feel like, I'll be honest, I don't know jack shit about cars. Like I am definitely not someone who can fix my own car and things like that. But to me, the Beach Boys car songs always, they might not be the best songs you've ever heard. Some of them are, but maybe not all of them. But one thing you can always say about them is I always think they have a really unique energy and amount of drive and charisma and intensity. So I think that holds true about this song. But if I had to describe it in a word, I would say manic. It's just very off the wall and zany and almost slightly anxiety inducing. Uh, the song never seems to like fully land on a certain key signature. It's just bouncing all around keys in a very similar way to This Whole World, which is amazing and it's brilliant, but it's very, very jarring. And like Steve said, the drums are like blisteringly loud, and that all comes together just to make a very just off the wall and almost shocking, but in a fun way kind of song. I don't know if anyone's ever put those words together, but I would call this one shocking in a fun way.
That's
Well,
a great review, Nate. I really, because you took everything that I would say that I disliked about it and turned it to a positive. And
that's Nate for you.
well
There we
done.
go. There we go. Thank you. Made my
Nate
night.
could listen to the zaniest, craziest, worst, most dissonant piece of
Yeah,
music ever, and he will find one thing that he likes about it, and he'll explain it
there we
so,
go.
and that's what makes him a pretty good producer. So,
Oh, thank you, man. Thank you. That really means a lot. Thank you.
and he also phrased perfectly why I like the song, because when you think of zany, off the walls, and manic, and you think of me, I think that they kind of go hand in hand. And let me just tell you, this song is peak Brian Wilson energy. I think that this is one of the most Brian songs that Brian could have written, especially in the late 80s. Um, and it's just off the wall fun. I think compositionally, you look at some of the chords being used and the progression, it's classic Brian and it's classic, like almost 60s pop in a way. Like in my car, captain of my destiny. I think that's a great hook. And it really gets drilled in your head for sure. But I think that's kind of what makes it fun. And it's a very Brian Wilson song. And I think if any other artist did this, I don't know if I would like it as much, except The Clash. I think I've always said that The Clash could cover the song very well. Um, but I just think it's so much fun. It's classic Brian chord progression where he's doing crazy shit that you wouldn't even think to put together, and it just works. But the thing driving it is just the energy and the enthusiasm in his vocal, and I'm a big fan of this one. Definitely a highlight on the record for me.
Yeah, I quite like this one. I don't think I'm as high on it as some of y'all, but I do really enjoy it. I kind of has like this like, so I know we talked about like this in the beginning. Kind of has like this almost like futuristic feel to me, if that makes sense. Like it kind of feels like it's otherworldly. Um, I think it's yeah. I like I really like the da 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 like the melody and the verse is pretty cool. Chorus is really good too. I just love that they're singing about a vet again. That's, that's awesome. That's, that's the American sports car. Yeah, I think it's, and I like the bridge, like the cruise, cruise, cruise with me, baby, now move. Yeah, very fun song, very enjoyable song, and it definitely has grown on me quite a bit too. I wouldn't say it. I don't know if I would say like it never did anything for me, but it was more. It used to be kind of more of an afterthought. Now I actually really quite enjoy it. So very fun song.
That fantasy car, shiny Corvette. That's exactly what I was thinking. That's like a Beatles kind of hook.
Hmm.
Um, let's take a ride you can't forget. Come on, pretty baby. It's such a great hook.
Yeah. I love the way that the other guys are incorporated too. You got Carl, I think, on the first chorus, and then Al on the second. Like their voices fit the song really well too. I also wanted to say too, I love that we just described in my car with the word otherworldly. I just love that. Thank you for that.
It kind of just sounds like it to me. It sounds like it's like something that's not even from this planet.
Steve, when you re-listen to this, that's what you're gonna think. You're gonna think
Oh
this
yeah,
is
I definitely re-listening to it with all this in mind.
And
And
you're gonna do the
other
same
world.
thing.
I would have loved to hear the Clash cover it. I think I could really.
That's what I think. I think Joe Strummer's like, in my car.
Yeah, I could see. Yeah.
Johnny Corvette.
And playing it like at 200 beats per minute.
Yeah, I mean that the song already is like cranking too. The thing, like you guys said, the reason I like it is just the energy of it. Like you just picture like Brian like pounding the chords, like bam, 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 I'm captain of my destiny. Like I just love how the song flows. It's just really energetic and fun, and when it comes on, I always enjoy it. So
It's only a song he could have written too, man.
yeah,
There ain't no way Landy contributed to this shit.
yeah, no way. All right, the final track on side one of Still Cruisin' is Kokomo. So of course, this is a John Phillips song with also credits to Scott McKenzie, Mike Love, and Terry Melcher, and it appeared in the movie Cocktail. So this song is kind of a similar story to Somewhere Near Japan, in that it started out as a John Phillips demo. I believe Scott McKenzie contributed to that demo too. And then Mike added the chorus section, like Riley said, Aruba, Jamaica, Ooh, I Want to Take Ya, and rewrote some of the lyrics. Like with Somewhere Near Japan, I'd say that the Beach Boys improved on this one massively. To be honest, though, I don't mind the demo for this one. I think that it's an okay track, and I kind of like the more melancholic sound to it. But after listening to that version, it really does make me appreciate what Mike and Terry did with the song even more. I think that this is just a really well-written 80s pop song, and I could totally see why it was a number one hit. I think that it has a great melody, a super catchy and memorable chorus, and a nice arrangement with the steel drums and accordion. I love that the accordion was played by Van Dyke Parks, of all people. That's always a fun fact to pull on Beach Boys fans. And then I've also mentioned this before, but I really love Carl's vocal part as well, which I think Riley mentioned. We'll get there fast and we'll take it slow. Like, that's always the highlight of the song for me when that comes on. So, yeah, we've already talked about Kokomo a lot on this podcast, so I don't want to say too much more about it. But I think it's just a really great 80s pop song that gets hated more for what it represents for the Beach Boys and their image than it does for the song itself. Because I think musically the song is really solid. So I love Kokomo.
Me too. People
Elliot.
talk about, if you talk about Kokomo as being a bad Beach Boys song, you haven't listened to much Beach Boys because it's pretty solid. The Beach Boys have sunk a lot deeper than Kokomo for sure.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned Carl's vocal, great, as you say, really catchy, nice, late '80s pop song, well constructed, well performed, beautiful vocals, great song, great track.
I'd even take it one step further and honestly say I think it's one of the greatest pop songs ever. And to me, honestly, some of like the happiest moments of my life have been at Beach Boys concerts when every single soul in the theater is upstanding and everyone's singing their heart out to Kokomo. And it's just infectious and it lifts you up and the song really like does take you away. I don't care what like bullshit I'm going through. If that song comes on for 2.5 minutes, I'm good and I'm okay and I'm safe and it's all good. So I think the vocals, perfect. The harmonizing on the chorus is sublime. I think the production is so creative with the use of tropical instruments and then some of that 80s synth pop gleam to it. Just both of those genres come together really brilliantly on this track, done really well by Melcher and Bruce a bit too. And yeah, to me, the song really like combines feelings of nostalgia in the almost embedded into the music, like the major seventh chords and the minor chords, and it's very like has a longing feeling to it musically, but then the lyrics make it so upbeat and happy. And so I think it's just a really great song. And you think about what a success they had with the video with John Stamos at Disney World, and then they performed it on Full House in the stadium with the kids and the Full House family. So you can totally see how it was so infectious at the time, and it's just so timeless. It's really, I think it's a song that people will be listening to in hundreds, if not thousands of years. And it constantly embeds itself in culture and different movies and TV shows. I don't know what show it was, but they just had Steve Carell dancing to it in some TV show where it
Probably
was
The
like
Office.
it wasn't The Office. It was something he did where he was like an astronaut or something. Anyway, I'm getting
Of course.
lost in the weeds, but yeah, just it's the song has been in so many movies and commercials and theme parks, and it's just
Club
truly
Kokomo
like
cocktails.
there we go. Club Kokomo cocktails. It's it's like it's become its own part of the culture at this point. So yeah, I could go on and on.
Yeah, how can you be a Beach Boys fan and hate this song? Like,
Right.
seriously. Yeah, like I think that's the biggest piece of bullshit ever is that I like I'll listen to Brian Wilson mash on some like stupid
Chewing
ass
on
instrument.
celery.
You'll
Yeah, chewing on
okay.
celery, and you'll call it the greatest thing ever, but God forbid Kokomo exists. Like, I think that's such bullshit. Like, compositionally, it's incredible. I and call me crazy. I think the two best saxophone solos of all time is Pink Floyd's "Us and Them" and Kokomo. Like,
Hell yeah.
you have this song from Dark Side of the Moon, one of the greatest, most artistic albums, and then you have fucking Kokomo. And I can't even tell you which one's better because I think that the saxophone solo is absolutely killer. And then you have Carl singing his heart out in the chorus. You have Mike's unforgettable Aruba, Jamaica. Like that's the part I think most people actually remember. Stewie Griffin sang it in Family
Mhm.
Guy.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. Yeah.
he's like Stewie, get there faster, then he'll take it slow or whatever. I forgot the part he's saying. It was when he's getting some tan or whatever. I know I remember the exact episode. I think it's
I've seen it. I know I've
yeah,
seen it.
yeah.
Yeah, he's like in a tanning booth.
Yeah, and then he gets
Tanning
like
bed.
skin cancer or something. He's like,
The tanning bed,
regardless,
yeah.
regardless, it's compositionally, it's just so well written. Like, say what you will about like its popularity and where it stands in the Beach Boys canon. It's one of the catchiest, most well-written songs of all time. You can't hate it. You can maybe not listen to it as much as some of the stuff you like, but you can't call it bad. It's not unlistenable. It's far from it. So one of the best songs the Beach Boys released, for better or for worse. I know it definitely has its place in terms of like what it meant for the band, but the song itself is absolutely killer. You can't hate it.
Yeah. Riley, you got me thinking about like other songs that I like with like killer sax solos. And the Beach Boys honestly have quite a few. You got Going On, that awesome sax solo during the bridge. And then also the song, the cover of California Dreamin' has a killer sax solo as well. So those are a couple that come to mind. Also Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, I think is a great sax solo too. So.
I will say for me a big good one is Young Americans by David Bowie.
Mhm.
That's David Sanborn, who was an incredible sax player. Um Kokomo.
Shut down.
Oh, come on, Mike.
So Kokomo, by the Beach Boys. I'll keep it brief because I know much has been written about this song. I think it's a great, catchy pop song, widely overhated. That hook is incredible, like the Aruba, Jamaica, like it just gets stuck in your head. Like that was a stroke of genius from Mike. Carl sings his heart out on the chorus, like you said, Riley. The sax solo is great. That is Joel Peskin. Shout out Joel Peskin. I will say one of my earliest memories of this song actually was I don't know if you guys have ever seen the Muppets sing it. It was on Disney used to put on a lot of their VHS tapes back in the day, so that was one that I definitely remember watching a lot as a kid. So that's always a fond memory. Yeah, I feel like this song just gets a lot of hate, not only for what it represents, but it's because this is Mike Love. This is Mike Love's Beach Boys, and so some people like anything Mike Love touches is garbage, and he sucks, and blah blah blah. So that's why this gets lumped in with there. And the Steve Carell show is Space Force, by the way, that he sings it in. But yeah, I think it's a great catchy pop song. It's not hard to see why this was a number one hit. It's not hard to see why it still endures. It is a bit unfortunate. I would say that that's up for some people. Like this is all they associate the group with. But again, this is a
Yeah.
really good song. Like if you honestly think this is the worst Beach Boys song, you haven't listened to much, like you said, Steve, because I can think of like five off the top of my head that are way worse than this. Some of which are from like their 60s prime. Like I think Pom Pom Playgirl is worse than this. You know?
Give me your huddled masses, your poor,
Oh,
your
that piece of
Oh my,
shit.
we'll get to that later, Jake. Don't worry.
I don't
Yeah,
know
I
what.
mean, there's some people I know where I'll bring up the Beach Boys and they'll give me like 1,000 yard stare. And then I'll just say, and as soon as I say that, they'll start singing the hook to Kokomo. And it's like, yep, okay.
Dude, I can name a song off this album that's worse than Kokomo.
Mm-hmm. It's coming up.
Mhm. Yeah, it's actually coming up very soon. In fact, are we flipping the record now? Well, let's flip over Still Cruisin' and kick off side two with the track Wipeout featuring the Fat Boys. So this is one of
Oh, God, you got the 45.
this is one of several Beach Boys related rap songs from the 80s and 90s. But I have to say that this one is by far my least favorite of all of them. As stupid as songs like Summer of Love and Smart Girls are, I can at least see how someone might be able to get a little bit of charm out of them both. Like, I know for me, like when I listen to Summer of Love, I laugh just because of how ridiculous it is. But this one, I just get none of the appeal of it. First off, it's barely even a Beach Boys song, so the fact that it's included on this album annoys me. It's really just a Fat Boys track with Beach Boys on backing vocals. And then second, I'm not the biggest rap fan to begin with, as you guys know. But I feel that I can at least tell the difference between good rap and crap rap. And to me, this is just crap. The Fat Boys verses just sound really generic and lazy. And the chorus, like the wipe it out, wipe out, it just really gets on my nerves. I do appreciate the Beach Boys collaborating with an artist from a completely different genre. But I really do not think that a rap version of Wipeout was ever going to work, regardless of which rap artist was involved with it. So I know there's obviously some people out there that disagree with me because this song was a huge hit overseas. But for me, I personally consider it one of the worst things to ever make an official Beach Boys album. And I wish that it had been left off of Still Cruisin' or at least replaced with the Beach Boys movie soundtrack song from earlier, like It's a Beautiful Day. So I hate this, but I can also understand why it was included on the record because it probably helped boost sales. So this is definitely probably in my bottom five Beach Boys songs of all time, even if I don't really consider it a Beach Boys song. So
Yeah, I don't even know where to begin. I mean, first of all, the beach, I mean, it was obviously conceived in the wake of the success of Aerosmith and
yep.
Run DMC doing Walk This Way. There was suddenly a lot of, we'll take these classic rockers and these rap guys and put them together and we'll hit both markets. And so it was obviously put together with that in mind. But that said, the Beach Boys backing vocals on the thing are so generic that it might as well not even be the Beach Boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just bop, 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 or, whatever. The reason I was always, why this is on there, apart from it helps fill out the album, this little press release that I found in my copy of the album, as I mentioned, it says that this song is from the movie Disorderlies, which was the Fat Boys movie. It's not in that movie, but I'm thinking that at the time they put this compilation together, the plan was that would be in the movie and this would be another movie track. But
Mm.
anyway, and the Rap Boys are, it's a novelty act, it's a novelty single. The Beach Boys are hardly on it. It's superfluous.
That's a good word to describe it.
Man, we
So
got
I'm gonna take the polar opposite stance, as I
Oh,
sometimes have to do. Um, because I love this track. I think it's really goofy and sort of like Jake said, like certain songs make him laugh. To me, this song makes me laugh. Also, to look at it with like a 2025 lens of what rap should sound like and like good rap versus bad rap to me is like an unfair lens to look at the song through, considering it was made quite literally in hip hop's infancy and still in what today is considered like golden era hip hop, which where the genre was very new. And so I think the song is really fun. In fact, I'm going to read you some poetry that no one can deny to me is pure artistic beauty. The
or
sun went down and the night began. We was rapping for the people. cold chillin', my man. Just partying hard, making lots of noise. When around the corner came the real Beach Boys. So we all jumped up and started to shout, let's all sing the song, The Wipeout. No one could tell me that isn't gorgeous English beauty right there. So anyway,
You
to
want a
be
fucking
more
gold star? Or like,
to be more serious, what makes the track endearing to me, I'll be honest, it didn't click for me for the longest time. I thought it was silly. I thought it was crappy, just like you guys. But then I saw the videos of Billy Hinsche performing it with the Beach Boys in the 90s. And it was a concert staple for years in the 90s and the early 2000s. And Billy Hinsche would put on this silly outfit, and Billy would just go to town and totally rap his ass off. And it was very tongue in cheek and it was very goofy, but it was totally fun. And seeing how much fun Billy Hinsche had performing the song made me like it a lot more. And I also think it's notable because it's the last top 40 hit with the Brian Wilson production credit on it. It's also, in my opinion, one of the last times you hear his signature falsetto and it's sounding like the same guy from the 60s. And finally, one other fun fact about it that I think is really cool is that Gary Usher was involved with this track, and that Gary Usher was one of the engineers on Brian's vocal sessions. So I think, it's fluffy and it's goofy and you know, it's a novelty, like Steve said, but I really enjoy it. And, there were different versions of Wipeout that float around in the compilations and that are credited to the Beach Boys, and historians argue if those versions are legitimate or not. So it is nice to have an official Beach Boys version of Wipeout because it's a song that I think most people associate with the Beach Boys anyway. And so, yeah, it was one of the band's last really big hits. And so I understand why it was a concert staple for a long time.
Yeah, Nate, I will say that there is one bit of enjoyment I get out of the song. I will say the Billy Hinsche performance I've seen of him doing this is pretty fun to watch, just because like he is having such a good time, like you said. So if I do have to listen to this song, I'll take the Billy Hinsche version, just like watching him do it, just because he had a good time doing it. So
or the songs just sucks, Nate. You see, as somebody who is a fan of rap, especially from this time period, what the fuck is this? I mean, you got Easy-E, you got the NWA, you have the Wu-Tang Clan right around the corner.
You got
Um,
Beastie Boys. They're around this time too.
and you have the Fat Boys? Seriously? No, no, this is. I do like the Billy Hinsche stuff, but man, oh my God, like what? I don't even want to say what could have been. I just don't think they should have executed anything like this. And of all the songs they've done, they couldn't do like anything original. Like they had to do Wipeout, one of the greatest surf instrumentals, and oh my God.
Riley's wiping out.
Mm, no
Isn't the
words.
video funny too? Have you guys seen the video?
Oh yeah, the video's hilarious.
It is
But
hilarious.
Yeah, I saw it. I've seen it. All right, I
mm,
think Riley's done, Matt. I think you should go.
Okay. So like Riley, I can appreciate rap too in general. And I do like rap from this era. I say one of my favorite songs from this era is "The Message" by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. I think that song is incredible. Um, you know, this is a joke. I think that it's just trying to be a novelty track. It's not particularly funny. It's not particularly interesting. I can applaud them for at least trying to work with a hip hop artist, but I just think it's ridiculous. I think first of all, is anybody even on this track other than Brian? Like for Beach Boys,
Mike.
Mike.
Mike, I think Bruce, maybe.
Okay, because I for a long time I thought I remember reading this was only Brian on here. I don't know where I read that, but yeah, I mean the video is funny, and the fact that Carl's like not even in it other than like he's like on like a beach ball or something is kind of funny. Like you just see his face, but yeah, it's not particularly good, and I think it's kind of shocking that this was a number two hit in the UK. It makes me kind of question their taste almost that this was such a big hit. Because
Yeah.
seriously, I don't like it at all. Sorry.
Usually, I feel like the UK has better taste with some of the Beach Boys stuff than the US did like years ago. But like this makes me question it, like you said.
Yeah, I don't.
I
I don't.
will also add real quick too. I know I was joking about the alleged beauty of the rap part, but that was just me being silly. But I think the guitar riff is timeless, and I think that riff is so catchy. And I do really like the harmonies that Brian added to it. So that's really where I get most of my enjoyment out of it. I was just sort of taking the piss with reading the rap verse.
No, I know you were kind of taking the piss, but like I said, I think like we mentioned Run DMC and the Beastie Boys, but like I think the Message by Grandmaster Fast and Furious 5, I think that is an absolutely incredible song. That's like the hip hop I like the like the political, socially conscious stuff.
Mhm. So, speaking of absolutely incredible songs, we move on to the final new song on Still Cruisin', Make It Big. So this is a Mike Love, Bill House, and Terry Melcher composition, and it was featured in the film Troop Beverly Hills. Although I will say that the version that's included in the movie is a different recording of the track, which I think is far inferior to the Still Cruisin' version. There's also the recording from a few years earlier that's sung by Terry Melcher and his mom Doris Day, which is honestly just really weird, and it's also far inferior to the album version, in my opinion. Thankfully, though, today we're talking about the Still Cruisin' version of the song, which I absolutely love. I know I've mentioned before that Carl is, on a lot of these songs, and I love his vocals on a lot of these songs, but his vocals absolutely sell this track for me. I think he just sounds so damn good on the chorus, and I also think that both Mike and Al sound great on the opening verses as well. I especially love Al on the "Baby, Welcome to the Neighborhood." I think that's a really great vocal from him. I also really love the use of synth on this song. Yes, it is very 80s sounding, and it definitely does date the track to when it came out. But I also think that it suits the song really well, and it adds a lot of energy to the music. So I think this is just a really catchy and fun song, and I like that it has kind of a cheesy but uplifting message. I come back to this one more than just about every other song on Still Cruisin'. I just always enjoy hearing it pretty much whenever it comes on, whether I'm on a bike ride or I'm in the car. I'm always happy to hear this one.
In
So
your car.
yep, when I'm captain of my destiny, yep, just love this song. And honestly, it's one of those songs where like I feel like the whole thing is a hook. Like I enjoy like every single bit of this. Like it gets stuck in my head. So love it.
Well, it's certainly very 80s sounding. I think it's probably the most 80s sounding thing on the entire record, which is all
Definitely.
pretty 80s sounding. But and um, it strikes me as a song that really wouldn't exist outside of a movie soundtrack. I've never seen Troop Beverly Hills, but I'm assuming this song, Make It Big, with its uplifting message, comes in Act Two where they're striving to do something. I I don't know if anybody's seen it and can confirm that, but it sounds like we've decided what we're going to do and how we're going to fix the problem, and it's very cheesy. However, Carl's vocal and Al's vocal in particular are phenomenal. And I'll listen to it for that. But apart from that, there's a lot of cheese there, but the vocal, incredible.
Yeah, I'd call it gloriously 80s vibes on this one. I like you guys have pointed out, really fun and interesting, if not quirky, synth work and loud drum machines and gated reverb and all the hallmarks of the 80s production. But this is one song that I listen to when I need to get kind of like pumped up or motivated about something. It totally has that energy, like Steve was saying. It's almost like the Beach Boys take on the like Rocky theme songs of like that whole kind of niche with
Yeah.
those like blaring synth horns and the kind of motivational theme. I feel like that's probably what they were going for. Uh, but yeah, it's a really fun song and the band's vocals elevate it even more. So I have nothing to complain about. And I think, when we started the episode and I said like this album has really solid pop, this is like one of the songs that was coming to mind to me when I made that statement of, it's not hard rocking, it's not uber sophisticated jazz harmonies like some of their other stuff, but it's just really solid pop and it's fun and you turn it up and it's a good time. So yeah, I like this song.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this one. I don't think it's anywhere near my favorite off the new material, but I do like it. And I really like Al's little bridge part that Al does. And I really love the do what you want, do what you want. I really love that part. And I think the hook, the chorus is overly infectious, whether I want it to be in my head or not. It gets stuck in there somehow. And Carl absolutely murders the vocal best way possible. He sounds incredible. I love the synths on it. I'm surprised that a lot of the songs on the new stuff on the record doesn't have a lot of synth stuff, so I'm glad that this one does. Um, yeah, I really enjoy it. I just kind of sucks it's the last piece of original material we got for this record.
Yeah. I think it's a pretty good track. Definitely very 80s, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because I like that 80s sound. Carl sings incredibly well, you know, and I think it's a good message. Yeah, I've never seen True Beverly Hills myself, but I just was reading the plot. It's basically about like I guess a housewife that like starts like kind of like doing like a Girl Scout troop or something. It has Shelley Long, which I always just remember her from the Brady Bunch movie. But yeah, no, I think it's a pretty fun track. It's got a good message and it's sung well. It's definitely very 80s, but that's part of the charm. So yeah, I really quite like it.
So the album, of course, closes out with three oldies. I Get Around, Wouldn't It Be Nice, and California Girls, which are songs that we've either already talked about or are going to talk about in the future. Nate, you did want to mention that Wouldn't It Be Nice on this album has a different mix. Do you want to kind of go into that?
Yeah, so when the Beach Boys team were going about doing stereo mixes of a lot of their oldies, this was one of the songs where the master tapes couldn't be located at that time or had been damaged, something along those lines, maybe a combination of both. So they had to sort of reconstruct the song and use different outtakes and different elements of the vocals. So the mix on this album of the song is actually unique. So it's still a beautiful song, and I actually think the Pet Sounds mix is ultimately better. However, Brian's vocal on this one is almost a little more emotional and has a little bit of rasp and power to it, and it's a little more aggressive than on the version we all know. So I highly recommend checking it out because it is an interesting listen, especially if you're used to the version that's the hit version that we all know and love.
All right, so now that we've completed the run through of the Still Cruisin' album, we did want to go into a few of the extra singles and movie soundtrack songs that the Beach Boys released, mostly in the 80s and 90s. So, Riley, do you kind of want to kick us off with that?
We're gonna start before we get to the movie stuff. We're gonna start with some of the singles that they released. Um, First one I wanted to talk about is California Dreamin' from I think 1986. I think this was a year after Beach Boys 85 released. Terry Melcher was brought in to produce this one. And man, like I know that California Dreamin' is this big 60s epic like masterpiece. But holy fuck, they knock it out of the water. They knock it out of the park. It's incredible. You'd think that 80s Beach Boys covering California Dreamin' could be an easy flop, that it
Mhm.
could sound like crap, it'd be overly produced, but man, it sounds so damn good. I think Terry Melcher did a great job on the production. I'm glad they got some of the members of the Mamas and the Papas to join in. I'm also glad they got Roger McGuinn on 12-string guitar and that sax solo. Holy shit, man, that one's great. I don't know if it's Kokomo level good, but man, it's killer. And I think Al Jardine does a great job in the lead vocal. This is a song that they easily could have messed up. It's a 60s classic, and in many cases, anytime somebody covers a 60s classic, it sounds like shit. But I think this one, personally, I don't know if I listen to this one more, but I think it's just underneath. And I do come back to it quite a lot. So great job on this one.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you, Riley. Great cover. I think the band did a really good job of kind of updating this song and giving it more of an 80s sound. I will say I do definitely still prefer the original by the Mamas and Papas, but given what a legendary song that is, I think that the Beach Boys really did do it justice. Like you mentioned, I also really love hearing Roger McGuinn's 12-string guitar on this version, as well as that rocking sax solo during the second half of the song. That's probably my favorite part of the whole track. I really think it works well. And yeah, I really like this one, and it was cool to see it get a little boost of popularity when it appeared on Stranger Things recently. So, really cool cover. Definitely still keep it. I rank it below the original, but I really do like this cover a lot, and I think Al does a great job.
Yeah, I'm gotta be honest. I prefer this version to the Mamas and the Papas version. And I respect the Mamas and Papas version for what a unique song it is and how prolific it was at the time and how timeless it is. But in terms of enjoyment, I enjoy the Beach Boys version a lot more. I just love the way it rocks and the vocals are excellent and the drums sound so cool on their version. It's clearly 80s drum machine and programmed, but to me it nonetheless just sounds super, super rich and so yeah, to me this is a home run and it's a not a surprise at all to me that it's at this point one of their more popular songs on streaming platforms with younger people because it's just got a really cool uh Matt said earlier in the episode about In My Car, it's got almost an otherworldly futuristic vibe. I would say that about this song for sure.
Yeah, it's got an atmosphere to it. And I think the music video kind of adds to that too, if you ever watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah, when I first saw that it was included on Made in USA, of course I, saw this in the store and picked it up. Are there new tracks on it? And I saw California Dreamin', and I thought, one, it's an obvious choice. Mamas and the Papas did it right, and it's just something that they recorded to make fans have to buy the album. It's some quick throwaway that they've just thrown on there to make fans buy the album. And then I heard it. And it's probably, of all the tracks we've discussed, it's probably my favorite.
Mm.
I love what they did with it. I love the fact it's a great production. You mentioned McGuinn's guitar and the sax solo. The thing is just put together beautifully. They kind of made it their own, which which they were always able to do with cover versions back in the day. They did it again here. I love the video because they didn't try to be cute. They seemed often to be so afraid of not being fun.
Yeah.
That we're going to rock, guys. We're going to have fun. They just went ahead and did it straight, and I love everything about it.
I think it's a pretty good cover. I don't think it's better than the Mamas and Papas because that to me is like one of the all-time greatest songs. But I think they did a pretty good job with it. It does kind of capture the melancholy feel pretty good, and I think the music video helps with that. And yes, Roger McGuinn's guitar is a definite highlight. Yeah, I like it a lot. It's definitely grown on me. Before it just was kind of there for me, but like the more I've listened to it, the more it's grown on me. But I still don't think it's as good as the Mamas and Papas.
I do like that they got all like the big 60s rock giants from California. They got the Roger McGuinn from the Birds, you got the Mamas and the Papas and the Beach Boys coming together. And I think that
very much so, yeah.
compared to the song we're going to talk about next, where you have some rock greats meeting, I think they did a great job on that one, California Dreamin'. However, I know I had this one a little bit late, so I'm sorry if you guys couldn't get a chance to listen to it. But you're probably not missing much. It's East Meets West from 1984. I think it's safe to say unless Steve is a bigger fan, I am probably the biggest Four Seasons fan out of all of you guys. I'm a big fan of all their work, going from early 60s, even going into the 70s. Not a big fan of their 80s stuff, but I think that their Summer in Paradise equivalent, I think it was called Hope and Glory or something from 92, is definitely much better than Beach Boys. But this song sucks, man. And it's really, I think, more disappointing than it is bad because I feel like again, big Four Seasons fan, obviously big Beach Boys fan. It could have been something so damn good. They could have even had people from the outside write it, but this was written by Bob Gatto and Bob Crew, who wrote all of the 60s hits for the Four Seasons. And Bob Gatto is one of the best songwriters ever. He's worked with more than the Four Seasons. He's worked with like Michael Jackson and stuff. He's done a lot of great stuff. And this thing's so flat. It's so empty. It lacks what could have been a fantastic song. But it's just so empty. There's not much there to be. I like the first 10 seconds. It sounds very promising. When you have all of them harmonizing, you have this like almost melancholic like melody in the background. And then once they go into the hook of East meets West, it just sucks. It's flat.
Yeah.
And it's so emotionless and it's just so disappointing.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on this one, Riley. Honestly, I don't really have much to say about it. I don't think it's the most memorable song musically, and the only part of this whole thing that really stuck with me was the completely out of nowhere guitar solo halfway through the song, which it sounds cool, but it doesn't really like fit with the song. I feel like it kind of just feels like let's throw a guitar solo in there, and like it just doesn't really work for me. So, like you said, the idea of a Beach Boys Four Seasons collaboration sounds like it would be really neat. And I would have loved to have heard what this would have sounded like if they had like done a collaboration in the 60s. But this song I think is just really disappointing. And I think that both bands did far, far better than this. So if you haven't heard this one before, you can check it out on YouTube, but you're not missing much.
Yeah, I didn't review this. I somehow I left that off, so I didn't review it for this. But I don't really, I mean, I know the song, but I don't really remember it. It's forgettable. Nobody sounded like they were invested in this record.
No, no.
Everybody just sounded like they were phoning it in. It's like the Beach Boys thought it was a Four Seasons record. The Four Seasons thought it was a Beach Boys record. Nobody really, cared. The one thing I will say for it, though, when I moved to California in May of 1985, and the first time I walked into Tower Records on Sunset, that was the first time I spotted it. And I grabbed it. I didn't have a place to live yet. I was living in a motel. I put it in the trunk of my car and forgot about it. And it was like 100 degrees, 105 degrees for like 2 weeks. And it was rolling around in the back of my car. And I thought, oh God, I'm sure that thing. But it's really pressed well because it played fine. So it's a nice pressing, durable.
FBI label, man.
It's been a sign like can't melt this thing down.
Yeah.
No matter how hard you try.
Like a cockroach.
But
Yes.
there was a joke I was making. When I was texting the guys earlier because like I was putting some of the Still Cruisin' into Apple Music and it refused to upload Wipeout. So I'm like, oh, I guess it's a sign. It doesn't want me to listen to this song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be honest, this one, I can't say I like it very much, but I also don't hate it. Sort of like you guys said, it's just very one note kind of monotone in a musical way, if that makes sense. And earlier we were talking about Mike's like great ability to rework songs and reshape songs into things that are more catchy and commercial. And this song is like really begging for that. I think like the ideas are there and like the beginnings of a really good song are there, and it sounds like it was just sort of rushed to completion. And so it would have been interesting from what I gather based on the credits, it more or less seems like the Beach Boys were like guests on a Four
Yeah.
Seasons track. And I would be really curious what this song would have sounded like if Mike and Terry and Bruce got
Hmm.
their hands on it and sort of gave it like the Still Cruisin' treatment, if it could have been a little more inspired and memorable, because this is really one of the only Beach Boys songs where I'm not even sure I could like recite to you like the whole song off the top of my head. Like they even have a lot of corny songs or not the best songs, but they're still have catchy melodies that you can remember. But this one to me is just not memorable at all.
Yeah, that
Aside from the fun fact that Beach Boys and Frankie Valli finally collaborated.
yeah, that's how you know this shit blows when Nate's got pretty much nothing redeeming to say other than like it could have been something good.
And that's I always try to find some spin to put on it. That's all I could do on this
Yeah.
one.
No comment from me. I didn't get a chance to it.
Matt, come on,
Good.
what else are you gonna say, man? There's really not much to talk about.
Yeah, I mean,
It's so just like
it's
Nate,
there.
just one
It's
note.
sucks. Man, I was like a Four Seasons diehard before I even got into the Beach Boys. That's like going back to eighth grade. So when I like was first getting into the band, I'm like, oh, they got a little crossover track. I mean, what could this sound like? And it's just the least memorable thing we'd ever listen to. All right. We probably could have covered this last week. Unfortunately, I don't know why I made the decision to put it on this one. Spirit of Rock and Roll, Gary Usher, Brian Wilson track. I don't think it's anything exceptionally crazy, but it's definitely better than East Meets West. That's for sure. I think the melody has like kind of Nate said it. I think it just needs a little bit of an extra push, and it probably could have been something pretty cool. But besides like a pretty like decent melody, I mean, it's all right, but I can totally see why this was never really a thing.
Yeah, it's just kind of there for me. I think it's just kind of sounds like a B-side that could have been like to the Brian Wilson '88 album.
Yeah, this song for me, I have to say before listening to it again this week, I was honestly barely familiar with it. Like I maybe had heard it once in my life, but really didn't recognize it when I listened to it. Honestly, this is one I think Nate, haven't you said that you like this one quite a bit?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I can see why you dig it because it kind of has some Phil Spector touches with the production, and then you also have the lyrics, which are kind of about like the power of music, which is something that I definitely relate with too. I have
Jeff
to say,
Lynne's on it too.
what's that?
Jeff Lynne is on it too.
Oh, is he really? I didn't even know that. Wow. But yeah, I have to say though, re-listening to this one, I honestly enjoyed it a lot more than I was expecting to. I know that it does name drop a few older artists, which I know Riley isn't always the biggest fan of, but I think on this song it works fine given the subject matter. And honestly, in terms of like rock and roll tributes that the Beach Boys did, I think that I prefer this to "Do You Remember" from All Summer Long. I just find it to be a more interesting song, both musically and production wise. So, I think this track was definitely like the pleasant surprise of like this episode for me. And I think I do see myself coming back to this one again in the future. So I dig it. I don't think it's anything like spectacular, but I could definitely see myself re-listening to this.
I always,
So, sorry.
I know people like it. I always found it kind of uninspired.
Mm.
Uh, the fact that, I mean, you got to be careful when you're singing a rock and roll song about rock and roll. It often, to me, means that you just don't have any idea.
Exactly. That's what I've always said about Do You Remember? That's exactly it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a few. I mean, if you're Chuck Berry or Kiss or the Ramones, go ahead and sing about rock and roll. They seem to be able to do it. But for most people, and other people like Long Live Rock or Rock and Roll by
Led
Led
Zeppelin.
Zeppelin. There's some people. You can do it once in a while.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, if you're writing a song about rock and roll, you should approach that very carefully. It's not bad. It just doesn't move me. It doesn't. It seems like a perfunctory exercise. Not. It doesn't really ever grab me. Except, I will say, the one time I really liked it and I really thought it worked, and maybe this is like Billy Hinchy doing the Wipeout Live, is at the end of the Beach Boys 25 Years Together special when they do it live.
Hmm.
It works on stage, and I really enjoyed that version.
Mm.
So maybe it's one of those things you hear it in concert and it comes through.
Hmm.
I freaking love this song. I think it's like a top 10 Brian Wilson solo song for me. Definitely in my top 10 favorite of his. Yeah, I guess what I like about it is I think the vocal melodies are extremely catchy, and I'm totally a sucker for rock songs about rock when they're by the Beach Boys. Sort of like Steve said, I don't always like it by other groups, but when the Beach Boys do it, I always find it really endearing. And so yeah, I love this one. It's definitely got the Jeff Lynne touch. I know Jeff Lynne sings backup and plays some guitar on this one. And then there's a version I have that Bob Dylan sings a verse, which is kind of noteworthy.
Mm.
They His singing is really off key per usual, and I think they tried to correct it with a very primitive version of pitch correction, so it sounds a little wonky. But nonetheless, I love this song. Particularly the chorus really resonates with me. The spirit, the sort of call and response thing that goes on. So yeah, it's to me one of my favorite songs by Brian, and particularly one of my favorites that he did in the so-called Landy era, as I guess you'd call it.
Yeah. Nate, there's that later version too, because there's a few versions of this out there, and there's
Oh yeah, the Hallmark
there's
version.
a version that sounds extra Phil Spector, where it's got like the almost like the Ronettes sound to it, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, and then there's also the version that Brian did that maybe you're thinking of on
Mhm.
the Hallmark CD called Songs from Here and Back.
That might be
That
it.
was like a faux Beach Boys album where they like tried to present it as a new Beach Boys album, but it was just like
Oh,
live versions
that's
and
it. Yep.
solo songs. Yeah. But to me, that's actually kind of a cool hidden gem of an album. And so,
Yep.
yeah, I prefer the 80s version over that 2000s version. There we go. My man found it quickly. Uh, so, yeah, I'm a big fan of Spirit of Rock and Roll.
Uh, all right, we're gonna got two more, then we can get to some of the movie film stuff. This one I feel like we're gonna cruise through. Again, pun intended. Lady Liberty.
Oh God.
Um, what can I say that I haven't already said about this one? The vocal cadence barely matches the actual rhythm of the song. Just poorly and unnecessarily rewritten. I understand why he wanted to rewrite it, but are they even still performing this one? Like it's like 1980, 86. Like
It was supposed to be for, I think,
Was
because
it for Farm Aid?
It was supposed to be for the centennial of the Statue of Liberty because they had a big restoration in '86, and that's when it opened to the public after having been closed for so long. That's why they did it.
And they performed it at Farm Aid, so maybe they sort of had that in the back, and at like the second or third iteration of it. So maybe that was like in the back of their mind.
But man,
I thought he did it because he got divorced.
Oh yeah,
I
right.
wanted to rewrite it so that he was, wanted to salvage the song by making it about something else. But
Yeah, no doubt.
but you're right. The cadence is just Lady Liberty or Liberty, and yeah, it just the words don't fit the melody, and it's ooh.
First of all, I did this the opening like where it like has like them
yeah, what the fuck was that, man?
Give me you're weak, you're tired.
yeah, like they're like reciting the poem that's on the thing, and
Yes.
it's not, I don't know. I think it is a very bad rewrite of a quite pleasant song, because I actually do like the original. Shoving in things that don't make sense, it doesn't flow anymore. It just is so on the nose. I just think it's horrible. I think it's bad.
Yeah, I mean the
Yeah,
song
like
the song is like a divorce. It's a fucking mess. It's just I mean the
I've
thing
seen cleaner divorces, man.
it's just awful. They took a song that I really, really love. Lady Liberty is Lady Linda, Jesus Christ. Lady Linda is one of my favorite songs from the band's like later 70s catalog. I think it's a really pretty song with really great production. And this is just like such a piece of shit, lazy rewrite. Like literally, it pretty much sounds like you said, like the cadence is off. The lyrics sound like they were rewritten in like 5 minutes. I hate the way that it flows or the way that it doesn't flow. It's like let it shine for all humanity. Like it just sounds so just lazy. And I also think that like you'd think like having Carl on this version would like maybe like salvage it a bit, but like Carl can't even save it. I don't even think he fits on the song really. So yeah, this is just a really, really lazy rewrite of Lady Linda, and I just think it's awful. I've listened to it maybe only a few times ever, and I don't plan on listening to it again anytime soon. So it's terrible.
All
Well,
right, Nate. Nate, what
um
do you have to save it?
well, Lady Linda is a favorite of mine, and that's a song that I've always found really endearing and really special. And this song is obviously this new version is obviously, like you guys said, a bit of a mess and a little all over the place, and it feels a little rushed both in the lyrics and the production, but it doesn't completely ruin what I enjoy about Lady Linda. Like a lot of what I enjoy about Lady Linda is still there. So to be honest, this song maybe gets played a couple times a year on 4th of July, maybe Labor Day, and that's about it. Like maybe on those rare American holidays, I might pull it out of the vault, and but other than that, it doesn't really get played too often. But to me, it's still not the worst thing I've ever heard. It doesn't ruin everything about Lady Linda that I like. So that's what I have to say there.
Well, Nate found something.
Lady Linda used to be really nice in concert back in the early '80s. It,
Hmm.
it was it was a real highlight of the live show. I don't think I'm sure they must not have done it since the mid
They
'80s.
played it in semi frequently, and I use that loosely, but whenever they go to the UK, I've
Mhm.
seen some YouTube videos of them playing it in the UK in like
Oh,
2017,
it was a hit in
2018.
the UK too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hits.
Yep.
Yeah, top
Yeah.
10, I
Okay.
think.
So yeah,
I
that would make sense. They're doing it there.
Yeah, I think
wonder,
they have Brian Eichenberger sing it now.
Oh,
I wonder what Al thinks of that.
I,
Yeah, because they sang the Linda version, not the Liberty
I they
version.
did.
yeah.
Well, thank God. But yeah.
Well, yeah,
That would
they're
be
gonna
kind
sing
of
Lady
funny singing
Liberty.
that
Well,
version in the UK.
you never know with them too. They might do the. It's worth asking the question
they don't need
Yeah.
with the Liberty version.
don't need to be
I,
singing.
I will say too that I hate the fact that like there's so many like great Beach Boys songs from over the years that have never been performed live, but this piece of shit got a live performance like on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube. It's on there. But I mean this
It's
yeah I hate this thing so much.
I just
it's
looked it
kind of
up on.
interesting too that they could have just kept the original backing track completely and just done a new lead vocal
Right.
or and vocals, but it sounds like programmed drums instead of live drums. And
The
well, I
the
guess
drum,
Al always
yeah.
tinkers with his songs, so it's no surprise. Sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. So I just looked up. I'm on Setlist FM. So it looks like it was fairly consistently performed in the 80s, when it came out, 70s, 80s, and then it was done a few times in the 90s, pretty much all in England, and then it was done in 2017 in England. That's the last time it's been done. So they kind of like very sporadically have brought it out, and usually in the UK, like after the
Yeah, they're
divorce.
going there in July, so they might play it again soon.
After the divorce, I guess Al was like, "Nope, this she got this song in the divorce. Let's rewrite it."
Yeah.
All right. Last one before we got some of the music or the movie tracks. I know Nate likes this one because he played it in the car when we were going to see
Oh,
yup, Rock and Roll to
the
the
Beach
Rescue.
Party mix, the 8-minute version.
Oh,
Oh,
geez.
fuck. Rock and Roll to the Rescue. Um, Still hasn't clicked with me yet.
There
Yup.
it is.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that thing actually exists. I think the most endearing part of this.
It's in pretty minty shape. It hasn't got a lot of play, but
Well, yeah, I was about to say, man, how often you playing that one? It's a Mike Love. Was it Mike and Terry? Nate?
Yep.
Yep. Yeah.
One of their first tracks together, and it really reeks of 80s Mike. And unfortunately, where I like a lot of the stuff he did in the 80s,
There's
I don't think this one is
55.
actually one of his best works. It sounds like a very Mike song. I think the most endearing part of it is that Brian actually gets lead vocal on it.
Hmm.
Um, but that music video, man, holy shit. I remember texting Jake. I was just completely blown away in the worst way possible with that music video with especially when Mike looks down at that lady's chest. Oh my God. Let's just say it exists, man. It exists. I don't think it's terrible, but
Oh, man.
it just exists.
Yeah. I hate to admit that this song has grown on me a little bit, but it has. First off, I will say, like Riley said, it is interesting to me how Brian sings lead on this, but the song was actually written by Mike and Terry Melcher. Normally you think of either Brian singing lead on songs that he wrote with Mike, or Mike singing lead on songs that he wrote with Brian. So this song is kind of like a rare exception to that rule. So I found that kind of interesting. In terms of the song itself, I do have to admit that I think the verses are pretty catchy. And I do like how Brian shares some of the lead vocals with Alan Carl. I also do dig the arrangement on this one quite a bit. You have like the acoustic guitar and the horns during the verses, which I do like. And so there's definitely a lot more going on with the production than I remember from when I last listened to this song. That said, though, I will say I do find the chorus of this song to be kind of a letdown. I think that it kind of lets down the rest of the track, to be honest, because I think the verses are pretty catchy and fun, and then it gets to the chorus and it just kind of stops. It's like rock and roll to the rescue. I just think it's kind of lame, and it just kind of feels tacked on to me, like they couldn't think of anything better to put there, so that's what they went with. So I'm a little disappointed by the chorus, but what's not disappointing is the music video for this song, because if you have not seen it, look it up right now. Stop the episode. Go watch it. We'll just leave it at that. You can watch it on YouTube if you dare. So, yeah, overall, this song has definitely grown on me a little bit, and I can see why Nate and some other fans of the band enjoy it. But for me, this one's still kind of a flawed track. But like I said, that music video, man, if we got something out of this, that's what we got.
I don't have any strong feelings on the track. I think the music video is kind of unintentionally hilarious, especially this with Mike oogling all the young women in the bikinis. I think that's definitely something to be seen. I do have one question. I'm looking at the 45, at least the European one. It says the B-side is Good Vibrations live in London. Was that ever released on anything else, or is that like only on this 45?
I think that's the version from the album Live in London,
yeah, I
probably.
think it is.
Oh, that's the one from the one that was
Yeah.
recorded in 69 or whatever.
I asked the same question
Yeah.
on my channel a while back, and that was the response I got.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a very interesting choice of B-side.
Yeah. At least
Yeah,
you get.
your biggest song is your B-side.
At least it wasn't Susie Cincinnati again.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been even more funny, though. I would have loved if they did that.
But for the third time and fourth time, it's a B-side, right?
Susie Cincinnati.
Thought you were a winner.
Susie Cincinnati.
It's so damn silly, and yet somehow it's one of my favorite songs. And to me, it rocks, and it's happy, and it's catchy. Man, if I listen to that song, even half of it, it'll be stuck in my head for a week. So I can't say it's a masterpiece, but I can say that it's really memorable to me, and has a lot of charm.
Yeah. I will say, I do, like you said, I do think that the verses are pretty catchy. And I do like that opening hook that repeats a couple times, like the go and da 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 da.
Yeah,
I think that that's really catchy. I almost wish they maybe like leaned a little more into that with the chorus than they did with the actual chorus itself, which I think is
Carl sounds so good on that part.
he does. And then the part two where Carl comes in during the verses too, where he's like, "Duh." I love that too. But yeah, the highlight of the music video for me is when Mike's in the conga line with the girls. I think that's great. He's
They
having
still pull from that music video a lot for the footage that plays like behind on the screens during the concerts.
I think I noticed that too. Yeah, and I also
Yeah,
love in the
you'd yell "Rock and Roll Rescue" every time it would come up on.
yeah.
This get
I
a lot
also
did this get a lot of play on MTV? I can't imagine this being played more on VH1, right? That was a thing back then.
maybe. I mean,
This song chart like even
it,
modestly.
it charted in the 60s in the US, which honestly is about
That's not bad. Yeah, that's not
that's
even
about
terrible.
it's about 40 higher than I expected to be.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as far as like 60s acts having a revival, I know this was around the same time that the Monkees had their big 20th anniversary thing that was like other stuff started being popular again because of
Yeah. I also love in the video when they're pulling them out of the van and they're all on the surfboards and they pull Carl out and I'm just picturing Carl just so embarrassed like under his sun like just like man this is really us right now like
There's
wow
a reason why I started wearing those sunglasses.
yeah seriously
Jake, do you remember when I sent like the emoji I found where it's like the sunglasses and it's like crying underneath? That's like how I imagine Carl was like during this video.
yeah, yeah seriously
I
all
do
right
love that part of them coming out on the
on
surfboard.
the boards yeah and then they drop
Yeah, yeah.
Bruce falls yeah Brian looks well in the video but obviously we know there was a lot going on there but he does look well in the video.
Yeah, with the hairdo and him looking relatively trim, he looks a lot like his early 60s self
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was one
in
of the
that bit.
first times you got to see Brian that way too.
Yep.
Yeah,
That was
literally.
early on, and it was like a shocker. Like, whoa, what happened to Brian? Wow. You know.
I know he went from like the bathrobe and shaggy hair to that in like a only a couple of years. It's pretty
Yeah, yeah,
nuts.
yeah. Because
And
last time
plastic
I seen,
surgery and all that was involved too,
Yeah.
allegedly.
oh yeah, but
All
yeah.
right, Riley, rescue us. Let's get into the movie soundtrack stuff.
Rescue me, I'm somewhere.
Chase in the Sky from Up the Creek. I do like the intro. I like the harmonies on that one. But I think besides that, the track is mostly forgettable.
Mhm.
I think the melody's pretty sweet. I don't think it's like bad. I actually think it's pretty catchy at times, but I don't think it's good enough where I'm going to return to it too much. But you can kind of see where the Beach Boys were starting to kind of, what's the word?
Go downhill.
Yep. I think it's like I said, the melody's pretty sweet. I think there is something there, but I think it definitely needed to be realized a bit more. But obviously, it was for a what, like basically a B movie. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from Up the Creek. My opinions on this, I do think there's the record.
of course he has it, man.
It was written by Randy Bishop, who is someone that I will very much admit I had never heard of before looking it up. I guess he had written some songs. Did some solo stuff. I think Carl sings it well. I have to admit when he said waiting for my ship to come in, I thought it said waiting for my shit to come in, and I'm like, there's no way it actually says that because I don't think that they would actually sing that on a track. I think it has like a nice enough message. It's a pleasant enough song, but yeah, I don't think it's like super memorable or anything, but far from the worst thing out there.
Yeah, so this is actually a song that I think I first discovered through watching one of Steve's old videos a while ago. This is one of those weird songs where there's like nothing really wrong with it or anything that I would say I hate. But I still just kind of feel like whatever on it. I will say that you can definitely tell that this was not written by the Beach Boys or anybody who was involved with them. It just doesn't sound like a Beach Boys song at all, or even one that you'd want the band to cover or feature on. It just kind of feels like it was like, hey, we have this song. Like, do you want to sing on this, Carl? Like, it just kind of feels like just a kind of a random track. I do think Carl gives it a pretty good lead vocal, like he always does, and I do like parts of the arrangement. During the second half of the song, there's that cool little like fluttering synth sound effect during that part, which I do like quite a bit. But honestly, I have to say, if the Beach Boys or even just Carl weren't featured on this, I doubt I'd care about it or even listen to it. So, I think it's an okay song, but I'm with you, Riley. I can see why this one's been mostly forgotten over the years. I just don't think it's a track that's all that memorable.
Well, Jake, I think if I understand right, or if I remember right, I think you're exactly right that this wasn't even written with the Beach Boys in mind.
Hmm.
Offered it to somebody else and it fell through, and then they, had the Beach Boys do it because Bruce knew the producer through Johnston Records, and there's this whole, connection with Bruce that, I'll get the Beach Boys to do it. And I remember, at the time, it was kind of a big deal because it was the first Beach Boy release since Keeping the Summer Alive, and the first since Dennis had passed away.
Hmm.
And I remember putting it on, and my initial impression is still the same way. You can't tell where it's going when you put it on. It's like, oh, this could be pretty cool. I like the title. It was kind of an unusual title. I thought, this might be something. And then it gets to that chorus. The you said it, where chasing the sky, waiting for my ship to come in, and then all of a sudden it's real sing song.
Yeah.
When it gets to that point, it's like, oh, okay, well, I see what this is. But yeah, it's almost like a Beach Boys guest appearance on a Rand Bishop recording.
Yeah. Yep. All
I've
right.
been on a kind of unique journey with this song in that I literally never paid attention to it before. I know I've heard it before, and I think I technically, here's how I put it. I've heard it, but I never listened to it. And in getting ready for this episode today was the first time I ever listened with intention and really tried to pay attention to what was going on. And for that matter, actually listen to the whole song instead of just listen to the first few seconds and be like, meh. Um, so I was really pleasantly surprised when I was listening to it today and really focusing on it. I thought Steve Levine, he worked on the production on this one, I believe, and I thought the production was interesting. Am I mistaken on that?
I feel like that would have been mentioned somewhere, like on Steve Levine's. I didn't see anything about that, but
Yeah.
I guess it's possible. It doesn't
Maybe I'm
sound.
mistaken.
Oh,
Maybe
was
I'm mistaken. Either way, whoever produced it, even if it's not Steve Levine, it does have a bit of that 80s culture club kind of new wave sound. So maybe that's partially why I jumped to that conclusion. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And to be honest, my thoughts aren't too formulated on it because I've only listened to it no more than 5 times. So I'd probably have to listen to it more to give you in-depth thoughts. But I thought it was really cool. And honestly, it was kind of fun for me to discover a song that has a Carl Wilson lead that I had never remembered hearing before. So I enjoy it.
All right, we're getting into the good stuff. So of course, I mean happy endings with Little Richard. Uh, man, it's not the worst thing ever. I'll give it that.
Mhm.
I think that there could be something here. Of course, he has it. Weird
That's
photo
like
of
a rare
Brian,
one
by the
too.
way, because he's kind of like halfway between his little like longer 86 hair, but like also still very
yeah.
much looks like it. If you, I don't know if you can see it. You'll find it on YouTube if you look up the song. The melodies, I think there could be something there with it, but the production is very
Dated.
sharp, very what, Jake?
Very dated. This sounds especially dated, this one.
Right.
It
Yeah.
sounds
And
very
not in the good way like Beach Boys 85.
Yeah.
Like
Yep. Yep.
it's very sharp. Right in it really hurts your ears almost. I don't know, it's just like kind of like East meets West, man. It's just super uninteresting. Like I feel like there could have been something there. It starts off a little strong, but it doesn't really go anywhere. Um, Come on, man. You got Little Richard for a track, and it still sounds very boring. It's just very disappointing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in terms of like sappy 80s power ballads, I honestly don't think this is that bad. I think the verses are memorable enough that I can remember them. And I do like the group harmonies during the chorus as well. But honestly, my biggest issue with this song is honestly Little Richard's vocals. There's parts
Agreed.
of this where I think he sounds fine, but then there's other parts where he sounds like he's like really over singing and almost like forcing himself to sound soulful on a song that isn't really that soulful. Like this is pretty much just like an 80s power ballad, like similar to something like Chicago would put out around that time. Like there's nothing really wrong with it, but like it's not a soulful song. And like Little Richard's going like, like just like I don't know, it's just like
Sounds
he's
like a cat
all over
on
the
this
place.
song.
It just sounds really forced. So again, though, it's not the worst song in the world, and I actually would say that it has grown on me a little bit since I last listened to it. But it's definitely on the sappier side, and you can definitely tell that Bruce wrote this. So
Yeah.
another track that I feel like has kind of just been forgotten to time, and I'm not really surprised that most people don't know this one today. I think only the most diehard of Beach Boys fans are going to get any sort of enjoyment out of this one. So not the biggest fan, but it's not the worst thing ever.
Okay, first of all, I want to say, what is this from? This is from a 1988 movie,
The telephone.
Telephone, with Whoopi Goldberg, that was written by Terry Southern and Harry Nilsson. Yes, you heard that right. Harry Nilsson co-wrote the screenplay to this. Never seen it, but apparently it was god awful. Um, Whoopi Goldberg actually sued the production company over it because she said she got final cut and she didn't like the cut that was made, and she fought with Rip Torn, who directed the film, because she was persuaded to improvise and he wanted her to direct it as it was scripted. Apparently, Robin Williams was originally written for the main role. His manager didn't want him to do it. Sounds like it was for the best. And apparently, this film was so poorly received that when it was screened in New York, audiences cried out, "I want my money back, and I hope the film breaks." And it made $99,000 on a budget of 2.2 million. So, yeah, apparently, really, really bad. So, maybe a really good idea for a riff tracks. As far as the song itself, it sounds like some kind of throwaway from like a knockoff Disney movie. Like it's not Disney, but it's like those animated movies they used to make in the 80s. Very dated production. Yeah, Little Richard, I agree with you, Jake, sounds pretty bad in parts of it. Some of the lyrics are really bad. Give me Santa and the Easter Bunny, make me smile again, like Peter Pan in Neverland, and dream a lot of Camelot. So then I looked up who wrote it, and I found out it was Bruce and Terry, and I'm like, well, now that makes sense because this sounds like something Bruce would write. Yeah, not a fan. Not a fan. I think it's very sappy and it's just kind of dated and not and a waste of Little Richard.
Yeah, I had the same feeling that it's the worst traits of Bruce writing. That it's just very soft. I mean, Bruce has written some great stuff, but he does have a, a propensity to throw in some cliches and write some very soft and forgettable stuff. And this is a prime example, I think. I admire the fact that Jake can remember the chorus because it plays and it's like, yeah, it's pleasant, and then it doesn't stick at all for me. Um, and I liked your description of the movie. Yeah, I understand that they tried to shoot it two ways. One where they stuck to the script, and then Whoopi Goldberg was allowed to improvise a take, and then they gave her final cut. And guess what she liked? Of course, it was the one she improvised, so that it ended up being a jumble. Anyway, that's what I've heard. And yeah, a waste of Little Richard. And I think he is trying to emote too hard in a place where emoting like that is not going to work.
Yeah, I guess I'll say what I like and what I don't like. As far as what I like, I think Bruce has never written a song that had an uninteresting chord progression. I think underneath all the schmaltz and underneath all of the silly lyrics, I think all of Bruce's songs have really fascinating chord progressions, and this song is no exception from that. And I really like the part where Al comes in and sings that melody. Da, 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 da. That little feature that Al has, I think, is really memorable. And, even Carl's vocals are really sweet and tender as well. But yeah, Little Richard's vocals to me sound like shockingly uh just off the mark on this one to me, and really detract what from what could have been, in my opinion, like a solid Beach Boys effort, if not their greatest song, something that still uh is good enough to bear their name. But Little Richard just hitting those really off-key, high-pitched notes at the beginning is like a big WTF moment on what should be, like Steve said, like a really tender song that is not calling for that level of emoting. But yeah, despite all of that I just said, Bruce's chord progression on this is really, really nice.
I'm glad to hear that we're all in agreement on the vocals from Little Richard because when I first played this, I was playing this at work. My first thought was like,
What the
what the
fuck?
actual fuck am I listening to? Because I thought it was like actively bad.
Yeah, this is one of those ones I would never want anyone to like hear if they were like in the car with me or something. I'd be like, oh boy, flip, 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 flip.
They never played this on the Sirius station, did they?
Oh,
They probably have. They probably have. They play above
they
everything.
listen, man. If they're playing "Won't Somebody Dance with Me" by Bruce, I can guarantee you they're playing this. So
Yeah.
I would honestly rather listen to that because that at least is unintentionally hilarious.
yeah,
Uh, don't get me started on that shit. Um, Luckily, we got a little, I think, a breath of fresh air with Problem Child.
Hmm.
I used to not really like this one, man, but let me tell you,
Ah,
for better or for worse, it clicked.
yeah.
I could do without the nah, 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 but I love the whoop, 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 whoop. Who wants to grow up? Awesome Carl vocal, of course, and it just unbelievably, and I truly mean unbelievably catchy. Um, that's all I gotta say, man. Unbelievably catchy.
Yeah, I've been waiting for the chance to talk about this song since the day we started this podcast. I enjoy the hell out of this one every time I hear it. Like Riley said, I just think it's super catchy song. And I just love how much energy it has, both musically and production wise. I remember the first time that I heard it, I thought the nah 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 vocals that is talking about were pretty annoying. But honestly, now I can't really imagine the song without them. I think they're almost like part of what makes the song entertaining and fun. Like they kind of add to like the cheesy, fun vibe of the track. Like Riley said, Carl steals the show again on vocals. It's amazing to me how on a song this cheesy and ridiculous, he would just absolutely just sing the hell out of it. I really feel like nobody else could have sang this nearly as good as Carl did. So if somebody else was on vocals on this, I probably would not like it near as much. So yeah, personally, I really love this song, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I think it's just a really fun track, and it's one of my favorite songs that Terry Melcher did for the band. I really love it, and I also wanted to mention too, love the music video with Carl wearing the shades, somehow managing to look cool playing this song. It's pretty cool. So
Yeah, I really like it too. It's very catchy, like Riley said, almost unbelievably catchy. So this is a Terry Melcher uh
yeah,
produced song. Carl sings the hell out of it. As far as the nah 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 nah, yeah, kind of annoying, but it doesn't distract from the song. It's fitting. Yeah, no, just really, really catchy. And I don't know, I like some of the lyrics. They're kind of silly, but I mean, who wants to grow up? Who wants responsibility? Who wants to work till they're 93? I think that's like something that we can all relate to. It's like, at least for me, I wanted to be an adult so bad. Now that I'm an adult, I'm like, damn, I wish I was a kid again. So to go to work and shit. But no, yeah, seriously though, it's a very fun song, unbelievably catchy, and I do love how in the music video, like he messes with everybody but Carl. Carl's just with there with the shades and singing the song in the suit, and everybody else gets fucked over.
yeah, Matt, I love the line. You're just a kid now, but soon you'll be a king of hearts. That girl next door might turn into a work of art. What a lyric, man.
I like that lyric actually.
Good,
It's like,
good stuff.
I'm glad I got to revisit this one because really all I really remembered about it was the na 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 na, which was really annoying. And also, because there were so many promos for the movie, the previews for the movie, and which to me looked just utterly obnoxious. That between the na 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 and I couldn't separate the song from the movie, that I
Mhm.
really overlooked this thing. But putting it on for this is pretty good. I mean, Carl's vocal is great, Mike's support is great. The thing really rocks. It's got some great hooks in it. There's a lot to be said for this, and I really, on the review today, it really turned me on to it, kind of.
Hell yeah. Hell
I'm right there with you, Steve, that I think there's a lot to be admired about the song. And like you guys have all mentioned, it's really fun and cheerful and has a kind of childlike fun to it, you know? And it's notable that John Stamos is playing the drums on this song, which, in fairness to me, sounds like a blend of drum machines
yeah.
and live fills and live kind of overdubs, which, is par for the course with music from the 80s and 90s and even today. But it does kind of make me wonder that if the Beach Boys were more active as a recording band in the 90s, if Stamos would have continued to be playing on the tracks as well, or if this was like a one off or two off with this and forever. But yeah, when I think about the song, I do think of the music video with them playing it in the studio and John Stamos, the set with the drum set with all the cymbals and big tom toms and that very 90s looking drum set. So yeah, it's fun.
A few other things I wanted to mention about this one as well. First, I also really love, I guess it's the bridge melody, but they do repeat it quite a bit. the part where they go, "You make us crazy," da 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 da. Really love that part. That part is like such an earworm. And then also really love the sax solo on this. I think it adds a lot to the song. Very 80s sounding, but I do like it. And the other thing I wanted to mention too, Nate, I don't know if you know what's going on in this part because it's like kind of like a producer thing, but there's that part in the song. It's like after the chorus where like they got this weird like kind of warped vocal effect on Al where it's like na 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 na.
Oh yeah.
It's totally kind of cheesy, but I do like it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking?
it's like a stereo panning effect where the
Yeah,
vocal is panning back
or
and forth from left to
yeah,
right. Yeah, really creative production. Bruce
yeah,
and Terry did a good job.
You know
yeah.
what song I like that does that? You guys know the song "Moving in Stereo" by the Cars?
Yes, that's
Hmm.
great.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Breaking into the 90s, 1991, year before Summer in Paradise. We have the Beach Boys rendition of Crocodile Rock. He had it ready. Yeah, it's for I think it was for like the celebration of Elton John and Bernie Taupin. And you know what, man? It's not that bad. I personally, I don't think it's that bad. I actually get some enjoyment out of it. I don't think I will ever listen to this over the original, which I think is a classic. But I think for what we got, it's about on par for what you'd expect. It's
Yeah.
just, it's all right. I think a lot of the weight being carried is just how well the song is actually written. I think Al does a pretty solid vocal. Obviously, I think the production is what you'd expect from 1991 Beach Boys, but it's not bad. I just, and I think they probably could have done a really good version of this, maybe back in like the 70s or the 80s, but it's all right. I don't think it deserves all the hate it gets, but I also don't think that it's like a classic rendition.
Hmm.
Yeah. So first off, this is another song that you can put in the Music Video Hall of Fame. Again, if you haven't seen this music video before, pause the episode, go watch it because it's must see viewing. But yeah, this is like another one of the covers that I kind of used to think was kind of pointless. Like, why are the Beach Boys covering Crocodile Rock in the '90s? Like, who asked them to do this? What is the point? So I never really bothered giving this one a real chance until I would say probably last year when I finally listened to the whole thing. And honestly, I have to say, I think Al really saves this one for me. Had Mike or Brian sung lead on this when it came out, I probably would not care for it at all. But I do think that Al's voice really does fit the song well. And I also really love Carl's little vocal part during the second half of the song. Yeah, as a casual Elton John fan, I don't think that this cover comes close to the original. But as a Beach Boys fan, I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't get any enjoyment out of this because I do think it's a fun little cover. So far from the band's best cover, and production wise, I think that this sounds very dated. But I would still say that it's worth a listen, especially if like you like some of the Beach Boys' other cheesier '80s '90s stuff, or if you're an Elton John fan, because I don't think it's an offensive cover by any means. I just think it's a very kind of cheesy sounding cover, but it's a fun time.
Yeah, I think that Al does a really good job singing it. I think the problem I have with it, at least one thing I love about the original Crocodile Rock is that Farfisa. That is what makes the song
Mm-hmm.
like the way
Yep.
that Elton plays it. That's like one of my favorite parts in that song, and I just think it's kind of missing that. I don't know if this song really works with like that kind of like dated late 80s, early 90s production. I think it kind of works like in the original arrangement with like the Farfisa, and it's kind of like the throwback to the 50s and everything. So I think it's a solid cover, but not a patch on the original, which is one of my favorite Elton John songs.
Yeah, my take, I read about it before it came out that there's going to be an Elton John tribute album with all these great artists on it, including the Beach Boys. And then when I saw that they're doing Crocodile Rock, it was like, well, they went the easy route. They picked the thing that sounds like an oldie that's right in their wheelhouse. When there's so many Elton John, they could have done Chameleon, which was written for them initially. They could have done Harmony, which would certainly have been a
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing to hear him do. And
Mm-hmm.
there's so many deep cuts that it would have been just wonderful to hear him do. So I was just disappointed by the real obvious easy choice that they made. And I think Riley said, that said it well, that a lot of the reason that it holds up as well as it does is it's just a really well written tune. And the vocals are good. I mean, between the vocals and the fact that it's a good song anyway, it's enjoyable, but the 90s production doesn't do that much for me. And it kind of comes across like the sort of version of an Elton John song that you would have seen on a variety show. where everybody's, wearing poodle skirts and dancing around. Um, you know, it's kind of fun. That's the best I can say about it.
Yeah, I don't know if I enjoy it more with or without the music video, because like the music video is a pretty fun time. I laugh every time that they have the Beach Boys acting like they're still like in their 20s when they're like in their 50s, like they're in like bumper boats in the music video and stuff. It just looks kind of ridiculous, but it is kind of funny, and I think it does kind of add to the charm of the song a little bit. And I also say too, you're too far down the Beach Boys rabbit hole when you're watching a video on YouTube that it's like a behind the scenes of the making of the Crocodile Rock.
Yeah, it's like
I
40
was a
minutes or something
while ago.
crazy
I
like
don't know.
that.
What am I doing with my life right now?
You are too
Yep.
far.
Uh, so what I'll say about this is to me it makes kind of perfect sense in my mind that the Beach Boys would cover this because to I always kind of interpreted this song as a bit of a Beach Boys tribute. I always thought the falsetto melody in the chorus of Crocodile Rock, the na 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 na, to me always sounded so clear as day in homage to Dance Right on the Spot. This
Mm,
beat's really hard. I always made that connection and thought it
mm,
sounded a lot like Dance Dance Dance. So to me, when I hearing Crocodile Rock, I always used to think like, oh, this would be cool as a Beach Boys song. And then finding out the Beach Boys did it, I was like, oh, perfect. I always wondered what this would sound like. So from that aspect, I think it's cool and very enjoyable. But yeah, I'm in total agreement with what you guys said. Is it like the breathtaking and knock your socks off? No. But is it a great Al Jardine led track? Hell yeah. And I'll also say one thing that stands out to me too is that during this late 80s, early 90s era, they were switching their falsetto vocalist a lot. Sometimes it was Bosquet, sometimes it was Matt Jardine, sometimes it was Adrian Baker, sometimes it was still Bruce or Al. But on this track, they used Adrian Baker singing falsetto, and that was a perfect choice to use Adrian on this song because his falsetto is very sharp and distinctive and cutting, and I think it worked really well on this song. Whereas like some Adrian Baker Beach Boys collaborations, I think his falsetto can sound a little grating. On this one, it just sounds fantastic.
yeah, he has more of like a Frankie Valli falsetto, because I know he would do a couple Frankie Valli covers. I think when he was touring in the touring band.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
exactly.
Riley, were there any other tracks you wanted to talk about? I thought there was one more on your list that you said.
The
I mean,
Monkey's Uncle was on the
do you
list.
want to do Monkey's Uncle? It's
Yeah, we
like
can
the
talk
first.
about it as like a movie song if we want. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the first song they actually did for a movie, I think, was in 1964. I think it was Matt. What was the movie?
Monkey's Uncle.
Oh, it was called The Monkey's Uncle. Okay, I was about to say the
It was one
song
of
is
those, it was one of those Disney live action films with Tommy
With
Kirk
Annette.
and Annette Funicello, which Annette Funicello was in the Mickey Mouse Club. Tommy Kirk, he was, if you guys have ever seen Old Yeller, he was the older son in Old Yeller.
Hmm.
But yeah, Monkey's Uncle, um, from 1964. You know what? I think it's actually pretty good. I don't think it's kind of bad on par with a lot of like what could have been a 60s throwaway, but I really love that. Not the verse, but like you break down in the chorus and you get Brian's like wailing falsetto. And I think that it's very catchy, that particular part. Besides that, I mean, it's pretty on par. It's what you'd expect 60s Beach Boys soundtrack thing.
Yeah, it's interesting for me to hear the Sherman Brothers write a song kind of in the style of like the Beach Boys and the surf rock stuff because when I think of them, I think of like the songs they wrote for Mary Poppins, which they did the year before this, and that was actually directed, but this was directed by the same director, Robert Stevenson, who did Mary Poppins. So you think like Chim Chim Cheree and Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and Spoonful of Sugar. So it's kind of interesting to hear their take on that. I think it's a solid tune. I don't think it's like the finest song that the Beach Boys have ever been involved in, or the finest song that the Sherman Brothers ever wrote. But it's a solid little tune, and kind of cool to hear them do a song with Annette Funicello because she's another beach icon with like a lot of the movies she did with Frankie Avalon, like Beach Blanket Bingo and all that. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think this one is like fine for what it is. It's like a movie soundtrack song, but like I'm probably never gonna listen to this again unless I have to. It like Riley said, it kind of just feels like kind of like a filler track, and I know the guys didn't even write it, just a movie soundtrack song. Like it's okay, but like I'm not the biggest fan, and also I'm not the biggest fan of what's her name, Annette. What's her name again,
Hello.
Matt? Yeah, I'm
And
not the fan of her vocals on this, to be honest. I find them a little annoying, but it's okay for what it is. I don't despise it, but I'm not going to listen to this again.
I
So
don't think she was known for being a particularly great vocalist. She just had a lot of charm and charisma. Same thing with like, Frankie Avalon was
She
not known.
was easy to look at too.
She was pretty. Frankie Avalon was not a particularly great vocalist, but he had a lot of charm and charisma.
mm,
I think it's a really, fun surf rock number. And I do think it's clearly a bit more dated than a lot of the band's other material at the time, like, 409 or Help Me Rhonda. This stands out as a little bit more antiquated sounding. But with that said, it's got some great surf guitar from Carl and Al. And I think that footage of the band performing it in the movie is frankly some of the best 60s footage of the band because it's in that great Walt Disney Technicolor and you can see all the detail compared to like the grainy news or TV footage you'd see of them at the time from the 60s. This is so colorful and you can see how young they are, and you can see
mhm.
all the detail on their face and you can see them playing their white Fender guitars and Dennis back there on the drums and Mike dancing. So to me, that footage is just priceless. And
Mhm.
it's amazing how crystal clear it looks, even in 2025. It looks like it was shot yesterday.
Yep,
Not the clothes, but the quality of the film.
that's 35 millimeter stock for you. I also want to give a shout out to
Yeah,
Edward Coleman, who is the cinematographer. He was also the cinematographer on Mary Poppins. So this film used a lot of the same team that Mary Poppins used, which makes sense because Disney, for their live action films, would use a lot of the same crew.
Mhm.
a song
Speaking,
about a monkey's uncle and that whole shtick does seem more in Jan and Dean's wheelhouse than the
yeah,
Beach Boys. It also
definitely.
wouldn't be a good time and episode with me if I didn't find a way to work in Jan and Dean at least once.
Yeah. It
I'm
was,
I'm gonna if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna sort of pass on talking about Monkey's Uncle because coincidentally, my episode this week that comes up on Thursday is 14 minutes on Monkey's Uncle. It's an entire Monkey's Uncle episode. So
Awesome. Can't
tune
wait.
into the Beach Boys basement with Steve Lewis, and you'll find out much, much more about the Monkey's Uncle.
wow, that's exciting. I think I actually know you had that coming up because I think I remember
Yeah,
you when
I
we were.
could, I didn't think there was any, never envisioned doing an entire episode on Monkey's Uncle. But then when I started digging around and looking into it, it's just so there's the promotional stuff is so crazy and
Yeah.
it's really interesting. So I hope you'll check it out.
Yeah, more signs you're too far down the Beach Boys rabbit hole when you're doing a full episode on
Oh
Monkey.
yeah, when I'm running down all the promotional materials for Monkey's Uncle. So
Yeah.
Oh, it's kind of crazy how they did this Monkey's Uncle with Walt Disney in the 60s. And then all those years later, 60 years later, Disney made the movie about the Beach Boys on Disney Plus. So that's so full circle.
Was any footage from the Monkey's Uncle featured in that Disney
Probably. I'd imagine it was, even if
at
it was
some
like
point?
quickly
Yeah.
in passing.
yeah, I mean they're only in it, in the opening credits,
Hmm.
time into the song, which is I mean it's some cool footage.
Yeah, it does
So
look.
cool seeing Brian playing the white P bass.
Yeah.
It is
Imagine
really well
it was
shot
in
for
there
sure.
because Disney's got the rights to the music, so why not?
Yeah,
Yeah, I feel like I maybe remember seeing like the clips of Dennis playing the drums or Mike with Annette.
Yeah.
I was gonna say though, I love if you guys can find it, that picture of them recording it, and Dennis is just like on the floor, like rolling his eyes. That's like,
Yeah. Before we wrap up, do you guys have any other general thoughts or anything else you wanted to say about any of these songs we talked about tonight that you didn't get the chance to mention?
In the 1980s, what a time.
What a time, man. What a time. Yeah, some
I
really fun guilty pleasures, some really catchy songs, also some shit, but I think that's part of the charm, with this band. It's you have some masterpiece albums, some just absolutely like mind-blowing songs, and then, you have some of this stuff. But, I think a lot of this stuff is really charming, really fun, and I think if you just kind of, again, if you're not too pretentious about it, where it's like everything has to be Sunflower or Pet Sounds or Today or, all those great albums, like
Smile.
you don't treat it like that. Yeah, exactly. You can enjoy a lot of this stuff a lot more, I think, if you kind of take it out of the context of like, oh, this is the Beach Boys in the 80s or just a nostalgia act. Like, just listen to the music, and I think you'll have more of a fun time. So that's my closing thoughts.
uh, to quote to take something from one of the most popular sitcoms from the 80s, with at least with the Beach Boys, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and then you have the Beach Boys discover.
I like that. I like that, Matt.
You guys know what that's from?
No,
Facts of Life.
Facts of Life.
never watched it.
It's a
I,
shit.
I grew up watching 70s sitcoms with my dad. I watched Welcome Back, Kotter, Happy Days. Never really watched the 80s stuff. We did watch 21 Jump Street, the show, though.
Oh, okay.
My closing thoughts would be somehow in 2025, against all odds, they're still still cruising after all these years. And I'm just hoping and praying that they'll continue cruising on for a few more.
Mm-hmm. Steve, anything else?
I think Nate said it beautifully.
All right, so we will wrap it up there. So thank you everybody for listening to this 52nd episode of Good Timin. Hope you all enjoyed the show. I had a really great time discussing Still Cruisin' with you guys, and I hope that we helped encourage some of you listening to check out some of these songs that you've maybe never heard before or have actively avoided over the years. So, as always, if you like this podcast and want to hear more, feel free to subscribe or follow wherever you're listening. We greatly appreciate the support as it motivates us to make more episodes in the future. Also, as a reminder, the Good Timin podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So there's plenty of different places to listen and keep up with the show. So thank you again, everybody, for listening, and we will see you all next time. Bye-bye.